everyone. Good morning, and welcome to the second annual, I don't know if it's annual, second monthly, I guess it is, LinkedIn Live-a-thon for job seekers. Hey, Rob, how you doing today?
I am so psyched to be here, Brenda. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And guys, we're going to kick this off and get this going right away here today. We've got 4 hours of packed content with great speakers like Rob, who are going to be giving you some advice as you are thinking about making a career transition in 2021, or maybe you're unemployed in between successes and looking for some tips to get you up to that next level. So we've got a very full day here today, and I'm going to start with Rob. And Rob, you and I actually met by way of, I think, Diane Darling, if I'm not
mistaken. Most certainly did, yes.
All right. And I know that Diane's probably watching, and I want to invite you guys, as you're watching the show here today, go ahead and leave a comment, whether you're watching this live and playback, and we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, on YouTube. So I want to encourage you to drop your comments in. And I'm going to kick our event off right away with Rob Levinson. And Rob has got an amazing presentation for us here today. And you're going to be talking about personal branding, right? How to use personal branding to get noticed, remembered, and results.
Correct. Awesome.
Right. So let's give the floor over to you, Rob, and we'll get going from here.
Okay. Well, again, I'm really psyched to be here today, and I'm really honored to be kind of like the opening act.
Yeah.
So I hope I make it a good one. Now, you referenced our friend Diane Darling, who texted me earlier and said, Rob, speak slowly.
She tells me the same thing. We're very high energy people, aren't we, Rob?
Well, that is going to be a problem for me because I'm naturally a very, very fast talker. In addition to that, I plan to share with you right now a presentation that I usually take an hour to share. And now I have 20 minutes. So I will do it my best shot. Did it come up, Brenda?
It did. So go ahead if you want to pull it up to large screen. And guys, the beauty of this event, this is all like live and as it's happening. You get to see all the behind the scenes stuff too, because we're just going to go smoothly through one presenter to the next. So go ahead, Rob, and I'll pull you up a little bit larger on screen here too.
Okay, super. Well, not too large. I don't want to look old. Okay, so when Brenda contacted me about this LinkedIn Live-a-thon for job seekers, I thought to myself, well, I know a thing or two about looking for jobs. I've been working for 36 years, and in those 36 years, I've had at least 6 careers. And I always think it's important for the speaker to give some sort of insight. Who is this person and why should I listen to him? Well, here's my story. If you'll just indulge me for a bit, it is relevant to the remainder of this presentation. I started my career in 1985 at a public relations firm in New York. And you just have to indulge me in one little story because it really has been the cornerstone of my entire career. When I was working in the PR agency, I had clients like De Beers Diamonds, Cointreau Liqueur, CBS Television. And when you're in PR, you write stories, you write narratives. I was working on Cointreau Liqueur. For those who don't know, it's an orange flavored liqueur. And the problem was in 1985, the market share was dying. It was old ladies taking nips on Sunday night. And the company wanted to reposition to a younger market. And I was exactly the demographic. I was young and single and had disposable income. So I was part of the team that came up with the idea of adding Cointreau to the ultimate margarita. In order to promote that, I set up Cointreau Margarita Nights at 3 locations in New York City: Upper West Side, Upper East Side, and Soho. I invited my friends. We had Cointreau margaritas. We took pictures, the whole thing. Then I went back to my office. And again, this is pre-internet. I wrote a press release that says Cointreau Margarita takes Manhattan by storm. And we sent out a photograph of the bottle and the margarita. It went to food and lifestyle writers across the country. I remember saying to my supervisor at the time, this is fiction. And she said, well, let's run it up the flagpole and see what happens. And in the weeks to come, we got clips from all over the country of people who were writing this story about the Cointreau Margarita. So if you live in New York and you hear Cointreau Margarita takes Manhattan by storm, you're like, right. But if you're in Duluth or if you're in Portland or if you're in Peoria, like, look what they're doing back east. That was 1985. 36 years later, you can go from any fast food Mexican restaurant to the Ritz-Carlton, and they will have a Cointreau Margarita on the menu. So what does that tell you? What I learned in that very first job was how to tell a story, how to create a narrative, how to make it timely, how to make it interesting. And that really is what I've done my entire career. Well, thank you for that indulgence. After my PR career, I thought I wanted to do something in advertising because we were doing writing and PR, but I wanted to do commercials and radio scripts and billboards and all that kind of stuff. So I moved to the advertising side, again, working on great clients like Rolls-Royce and the New York Mets, the Museum of Modern Art. And that was a wonderful time. Concurrent with being in New York on Madison Avenue, I was also selling contemporary artwork. I had an art history background, and I met some publishers and some galleries, and I ended up cultivating private collectors as clients. I just loved it. So I had my Madison Avenue, and I had my art life. Then I thought, you know what? Let me pursue the art. I moved back to Boston, where I was from, and opened an art gallery. Again, this was pre-internet, so we had a beautiful space, wonderful exhibitions, worked with curators and with private collectors. It was a wonderful life, but it was a small life. I thought like kind of a shopkeeper. So I closed that business. And then I went back into what I knew, marketing. But I wasn't going to come back as a PR person or an ad person. I was now a brand strategist. A brand strategist is the person who sits on top of the brand. He or she develops the brand positioning and then the narrative, literally the words to use to promote a product or service. I worked with 3 early stage technology companies. When they hired me, they had a business plan and a name, and I was responsible for bringing it to life. Now, truth be told, I was supposed to get really rich 3 times on at least one of those .coms. That did not happen. My last one was sold in 2000. That's when I became a Wall Street Journal columnist, writing a marketing strategies column, because I decided, because I had no choice, to become a consultant. So I had this wonderful column as a bully pulpit. And then for the last 20 years, I have had a consulting firm doing brand strategy and personal brand coaching. Okay, sorry, that was 36 years in about 3 minutes. So I have all these different experiences. I thought, how am I going to connect the dots of my career and what I've done? And then this happened. Fast Company, this was September 1997, came out with a cover story called The Brand Called You. You can't move up if you don't stand out. This was very intriguing to me. It was written by Tom Peters, who wrote the book In Search of Excellence, which is one of the most respected business books of all time. And here's what he said 24 years ago. Regardless of your age, position, or profession, you must understand the importance of branding. You are the CEO of your own company, and your most important job is to be the head marketer for the brand called you. It's this simple. You are a brand. You're in charge, and there's no one right way to create the brand called you. But one thing is for sure, start building your brand today or you'll regret it. And I'm like, I never thought of myself as a brand. I thought of myself as a person who went from job to job to job. But this is not enabling me to stand back and look at myself as a product. So let's define what a brand is. This is by far my favorite definition of brand. It's by Jeff Bezos, who the last time I checked was the richest guy in the world, so we should listen to him. Brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So I can come forward and I could tell you that I'm this, I'm that, and the other thing, but if that's not resonating with you, it doesn't make a difference. Just think about that definition of brand, because it will serve you well as we develop your personal brand. So if brand's what they say about you when you're not in the room, what is a personal brand? Here's a definition I really like. It's who you are. It's what you stand for. It's the values you embrace and the way in which you express those values. It's also very important when you create a brand to show intent, show purpose, and above all else, show authenticity. So when you're crafting your brand story and you're writing your narrative, you should be very intentional about what you say. You should do it with purpose and be authentic. Here's what I always say to all my clients. There is only one you. There are many, many people who do exactly what you do, but no one comes in the package that you do. Let your authenticity shine, because that's what will resonate most with people. So, okay, I'm thinking about myself, now I'm a brand. Well, then I thought to myself, well, brands are kind of like people. So you look at these 4 logos here, you know exactly who they are. And I'd like to suggest to you that each of those brands have immediate associations. So for example, BMWs are fast, sporty, and prestigious. Starbucks, it's good taste, creative, and indulgent. Target, good value, high style, and varied. GE, innovative, high quality, and hardworking. So these are the associations that come to mind for me and for many other people. But my point here is that these are personality traits that could be appropriate for a person as well. So let's look at people. If brands are like people, people are like brands. So here are 4 people you know very well, and they each have 3-word associations. So for better or for worse, each one of these people have put a very strong brand positioning out in the marketplace, and it impacts what they look like, where they show up, what they say, what they do, and how people respond to them. Let that wash over you for a minute. So my 3 words are confident, clever, and tenacious. That's really the cornerstone of how I present myself to the world, at least professionally. So I would ask you to think about, what are your 3 words? And over the course of this presentation, which I'm halfway done with, don't worry, there are lots of questions, lots of exercises, but these are things for you to think about. Okay, so if you're not branding yourself, you think, oh, this is ridiculous, this is not who I am, don't worry, everyone else is branding you. Even as we sit here today, you're looking at me and you're making assumptions. You're making assumptions about the way I look, the way I dress, the way I speak, my background, the whole thing, and I'm putting messages out there. I love this picture of this guy because he's such a contradiction. He's got the tats, he's got the piercings, he's got the ZZ Top brand, a beard, but the tie and the jack and the corporate shirt. So you saw this guy in a dark alley, you'd be nervous, but he could be your CFO. He could be running technology. He could be running HR. You never know. Okay, so this is where the rubber hits the road. And let's talk about the 3 steps to building your personal brand. Now, I'm sorry if there are questions and comments. All I can see, frankly, is myself in my presentation. So, Brenda, if you want me to interrupt, please go ahead and do so.
Yeah, we'll keep you going, Rob, and then probably at about 10:20, we'll start doing some Q&A. So just keep on flowing through here.
Okay, so there are 3 steps: a self-audit, building your brand story, and the third one is expressing yourself. Okay, so this is the first thing you do in a brand audit. Take a good hard look in the mirror and list your top skills, your qualities, and your differentiators. How well do you know yourself? Above and beyond the accomplishments of your resume, what are you offering? And once you get a very good assessment of who you are, I recommend you do a Survey Monkey. And that's with colleagues, friends, anyone who you respect, and ask them questions. And the whole idea here is to understand do people perceive you as you perceive yourself? So here are some sample questions that you could ask in that Survey Monkey. When you think of John, what are the 1 or 2 word associations that come to mind? What does John do best? Who would play John in the movie of his life? These kind of questions, they're fun to answer. People like to, and you'll get a very good understanding of how you are viewed externally. I also want to mention, you know that voice in your head that keeps on telling you what you are and what you can't do? Well, this is a very good time to tell that voice in your head to just stop talking, because we all have brand narratives that we have very comfortable with and we repeat again and again and again and again. And I tell my clients those brand narratives often aren't true and they're often not serving your best purpose. So please tell it to stop talking. So the next step is to develop a brand story. You start by developing a personal brand statement. And this is a 1 or 2 sentence phrase that sums up who you are. It's like a unique selling proposition, which is an insider baseball for how you're different from your competitors. It's like a slogan. So if you don't know how on earth to start to do a personal brand statement, here's an exercise that you can do when I'm not here. Write down 3 or 4 hashtags that best describes you. And here are some examples right here. A hashtag should be the start of your conversation. So for example, this one, hashtag brains bronze business, this came out of a recent graduate of Boston University Questrom School. And he wanted everyone to know he graduated magna cum laude. He was on the football team with a strong business degree. That's the beginning of his conversation. Do your own hashtag exercise and find out how you want to start your conversation. Here are some examples of personal brand statements that you might find useful. As a marketer, I develop effective marketing strategies that help tech companies find new customers and grow exponentially. So here is someone's very big career, and that is at the core of what she does. And you can see there's also opportunities with real estate and software developers as well. So once you develop that personal brand statement, it's time to develop a fleshed out brand narrative. So you're like, what is a brand narrative? Basically, it's the words that you put out there. So for example, when I took time at the top of this conversation to tell you about my career, there are things I wanted you to know. I wanted you to know I worked on Madison Avenue. I wanted you to know the clients I worked for. I wanted you to know that I worked for the Wall Street Journal. These are catchphrases because I know from experience that people like brand names. So in any way you have brand names, weave them into your narrative. So the first thing is the brand narrative is your voice. My brand voice happens to be a very fast talking person right now, but I have to go through this for you guys. Another part of the brand narrative are your key messages, and then finally an elevator speech. And once you develop this narrative, it's to be expressed on LinkedIn and resumes, interviews, or just in casual conversation. Okay, so here's how you develop your brand narrative. Answer these questions. I am best described as, I am seeking, I offer the following skills and qualities. Those who choose me gain. I'm special because. Okay, if you can answer those questions, that is the beginning of your brand narrative, because these are the key things, particularly when you're looking for a job, you want to communicate. So I'm not going to take the time to read through here, but I want you to see, if you're reading along with me, that this is a good way to take your big story and whittle it down to its most essential essence. Okay, so once you do answer those questions, you come up with 3 brand messages and 1 elevator speech. Okay, so here are examples of key messages. And you can see they come out of the personal brand statement. They come out of the elevator speech. It's very redundant. For you to have a powerful personal brand, you have to land on your storyline and repeat it again and again and again. So these key messages, I have some clients that literally use these verbatim in cover letters or in their LinkedIn profile, even on their website. I'm not necessarily saying you have to do this, but this is a way for you to order your story. So first, you got to tell people who you are and what you offer. The second message is the benefit of working from you. And the third message is what makes you different, what makes you special. That's why you'll get hired. Then out of that comes an elevator speech. And basically the elevator speech is a very, very condensed way of taking your key messages and having it at the tip of your tongue. So if you're at a networking event or you're making a presentation, this is a perfect way to, in a very encapsulated way, tell people who you are and what you do. Okay, the third part of building your brand narrative, expressing yourself. And this is probably where the rubber hits the road. Whether you go narrow or go wide, just tell your story. And we're all involved in social media in one aspect or another. My advice to you is just make sure that what you're putting out there is consistent. And also make sure what you're putting out there in the public domain is what you want people to see. So if you're interviewing these days, people are looking at your resume, then they're going to LinkedIn, obviously, but then they're checking Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And my advice to you is have nothing in those accounts you wouldn't want your mother to see. So even though you might have looked really pretty at that wedding, you might have had too much to drink. So you don't want to include that picture necessarily. Okay. Once you have your key messages, your elevator speech, you use your brand narrative at networking events, during informal meeting or interviews, when creating your social media persona, or when demonstrating thought leadership in your chosen field. Again, repeat, repeat, repeat. That's how people know who you are and what you stand for. I also like to suggest in closing that when you have your created a brand narrative, be intentional, be purposeful, and always be authentic. I always think it's super important, and this is not a problem for me or Brenda, clearly, is to be the energy in the room. That's what people like. People respond to and resonate with people that have high energy and high enthusiasm. So this is a really hokey little trick, but I actually did it right now. Above my camera, there's a little Post-it with a smiley face. That reminds me, A, to look into the camera so I'm not looking down, and B, to smile. People like smiles. They're infectious. So moving right along to using your brand narrative when you're Zooming, and that's all we're doing today. Be well lit, have light coming down your face, be professionally dressed, at least from the waist up, and whenever possible, participate in that call. There's a reason in your room, and you're in the room, and remind people, and using your brand narrative is a perfect way to do it. I also always suggest to exercise daily just to get those endorphins going, get in touch with nature, get out of your office. And finally, this is my big message. Always aspire to be you, but better. Just take who you are, what you know to be, and just ratchet it up a little bit, because the more energy you put out there, the more positivity you put out there, the stronger brand narrative, the better received you will be. And I suggest could also be your differentiator when you're looking for that next job. How'd I do, Brenda?
I thought I was a fast talker. I'm sure Diane is like shocked by both of us right now. She's probably like, oh, you're both too fast. We're both high energy people, but you did a great job, Rob, of getting through that content. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove that background, doing a little bit of piloting and co-piloting behind the scenes here. And we did have a couple of questions that came in from folks. If you're just joining, I want to say welcome to the folks that are joining, because they're probably like, what's going on here? And everybody's jumping on the feed. And we're up to, I think we've got 270 live viewers right now. We've had 505 total views so far. So I think we're gaining some great traction. But we're here today, guys, for a LinkedIn Live-a-thon for job seekers. And Rob Levinson just finished his presentation. Let me just pop the topic up on screen for you. Rob was talking about how to use personal branding to get noticed, remembered, and results. And for those of you that are watching, if you're, I don't like to say unemployed. I like to say in career transition, in between successes. I mean, I like the more positive ways of saying that. Or you might be working but looking, thinking about, finding a new job, and that's why you tuned in today. I want to encourage you guys, if you have questions for Rob, this is the time to ask them, and don't be shy. There's probably somebody else who has a question. And if you are nervous about your question, here's what you could do. You could say, Brenda, I have a friend who is wondering about, and then you could put that question in. I did see one question from Adrienne about the slides, and she wanted to know, Rob, would the slides be made available? Are you open to sharing those with attendees today?
Yes, I know that I have a lot of information there and a lot of exercises, and you couldn't possibly have collected that, so the answer is yes.
And I think there was a couple of people asking, and I want to remind you guys, anyone watching here today, if you go on, and I've actually created a subscription page on my website. Let me pull it up on screen right now here. I'm going to stop the ticker though, because that's it's hard to write it down, I think, when it's rolling through. But if you go to mellermarketing.com/Feb2021, it's actually February 20th of 21. And there's a subscription list. I'm going to be sending out links to the playbacks. So if you want to watch just Rob's session, there'll be like a YouTube link just for that. And then if he has provided his slides, I will send them out to you as well. And then I'm asking each of the speakers if they have any offers or whatnot for job seekers to include those in there too. So you have to subscribe to get those benefits. And then Rob, I want to give you a couple of questions to start with, and then we'll see if the audience has any additional. When I think about personal branding, it sounds kind of intimidating, and some people maybe don't know how to get it right. So what's the biggest mistake that you see people making when you're seeing them crafting this narrative?
So I work with a lot of clients one-on-one, and when I start, a lot of the ways that I get to know them is through interviews. And a lot of times people just sort of regurgitate their resume, and they talk in jargon like, cutting edge or think out of the box thinking, and they just use very typical terms, and that doesn't tell me anything about that person except for that they know the jargon of their industry. So what I tried to make clear in the conversation was really be authentic. So you talk about your credentials, but talk about them in the context of who you are as a person, because that's what resonates with people. That's what that will get you hired. It's not your resume, it's the whole package of who you are.
Okay. Great. And then I'm going to pull the next question up. As we're doing that, I'm going to start to pull in the speakers who are coming up behind you. So they'll be in the side panel, so you can keep talking. But Shireen has a question. Any advice for introverts who find it hard to share about themselves openly? What would your advice there?
Okay, this is really crazy. My advice is fake it till you make it. Really, fake it till you make it. And I think a lot of times introverts, they panic in maybe social or professional situations because they don't know what they want to say. And that's the whole point of developing a personal brand narrative. If you develop those key messages, if you develop an elevator speech, that can sort of be your default. So you're focusing less on, I don't want to be in this room, I don't want to talk to people, because this is what I want to communicate. And the more you study that and the more you own that, I think the less nervous you'll be.
Great. And I want to just say hi real quick. We've got Damon and Chris who are next up in the queue here. Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey. Doing good, good.
Good. So this is just a little audio video test, so you guys know, because everything is seamlessly going to be flowing throughout the day. So guys, just hang out for a few minutes. We're going to finish up with our Q&A, and then I'll bring you back up on stage again. Okay. Great. Perfect. So I'm just going to keep them in the green room for now. Another question, and I know a lot of people, Rob, are struggling with this right now because they have been pushed back into the job search market is the expression I've heard, not by choice, a change with their company, COVID, things like that. And they're having to reinvent themselves. So can you help us, how do you reinvent themselves? If you realize now that I'm out, I don't even like what I did before. So how do I do something different? Help us out with that.
I've reinvented myself about 47 times. So I'm very well versed in this. I would recommend to someone who is in a brand transition to look at your transferable skills. So if you were very strong, let's say you were a very strong salesperson and you were selling, software, but you don't want to sell that anymore, you can take the skills and the qualities of your sales success in one arena and put it over someplace else. So I'd look at transferable skills. And, one of the beautiful things about getting older is that you have the ability to craft your own story. So you can easily take what you've done as a foundation and tweak it to whatever you want it to be. And as my mother would say, no one's watching, no one cares. So you point your finger to your North Star, look at your transferable skills, and you'll get there.
Good point. And so many people, Rob, I just want to give you, some of these kudos on screen here. Lisa and others really enjoying the presentation.
Oh, good.
Folks saying they love to fake it until you make it, because nobody really knows, right? And that's the beauty of it. Like, we think what's going on in our head, like everybody knows what we're feeling and what we're thinking, and it's the imposter syndrome and whatnot. But really, it's having confidence about yourself, right? And crafting that story.
I just want to make one point. When I first started consulting, one word I could not own was expert. I just couldn't say it. I felt like these are people smarter than me. I was consulting for 6 or 8 months, and every Tom, Dick, and Harry I met were calling themselves experts.
Yeah.
I thought, well, they don't know anything more than I did. I started calling myself an expert, and guess what? When I started calling myself an expert, 1, no one questioned me, and 2, I made more money.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? You just have to be smarter than the other person that you're teaching the information to, right? You have to have more knowledge, I should say, than they do on the topic, and then you can be considered more of an expert, right?
Well, when someone hires you, they assume that you know something that they don't know. You're solving a problem for them. So I would just simply suggest you don't dissuade them of that belief.
There you go. Awesome. Well, I want to kind of start to wrap us up here, and I'm going to pull up your LinkedIn URL up on screen as I do this, Rob. And are you open to accepting invitations from people that are watching the show here today?
Absolutely. I love what I do, and I'm happy to talk to people and help them any way I can.
Awesome. And then opportunity for any final comments you want to share with the group, any offers you're doing for job seekers, anything else as we kind of close off today?
Yeah, I'm happy to share this presentation. I also have a presentation called 12 Steps to Having More Confidence. They're quick and they're fun, and it can't hurt to read. So I'll put a link in the chat box or something. Happy to share that presentation.
Awesome. Rob, this was amazing. Thank you so much. You are our opening, I'm going to call you our opening keynote for today. We have
I prefer headliner.
Our headliner for today's LinkedIn Live event for job seekers. Thank you so much, Rob.
Thank you.
Rob, I hope you'll join us in the live feed next, because there's a lot of comments and conversation going on here. We didn't get to all the questions, and I would love it if you could stay but jump on the LinkedIn.
I'm happy to.
Great. All right. Thank you so much, Rob. Have a great day, and we'll see you around. Take care. All right, guys. So we're going to keep us moving along here. Is everybody enjoying this? I am loving this event so far. So we're going to bring up our next 2 presenters, and Damon and Chris. How are you guys doing here today? Oh, I think I may have you muted. Please hold just 1 second. I was doing the muting, unmuting. Let's try this again. Hey, Chris, I saw you talking first. So how are you doing today?
I'm outstanding. This is awesome. Love it. Love it.
Good. I am excited to have you guys here. Now, I want to just quickly let folks know how we met, and then I'll ask each of you to introduce yourself, and then I'm going to give the floor to you. Now, are you sharing a slide deck? Could you remind me, Chris, or are you guys just talking?
No, we're not. We're just going to have a nice brief conversation, Q&A, bounce it around, keep it interactive if we can.
Perfect. All right, sounds good. So we met after, I think it was after my last LinkedIn Live-a-thon, or maybe it was just before it. I think Tisha Hammond, I was reaching out and I was looking for additional folks to add to the panel. And then I got a flurry of requests all at once, and I kind of booked everything up. But then I had a conversation with you guys before the event, and I said, I love the energy. I love, what you're going to be talking about here today. I'm going to pull it up on screen here. And I said, I'm going to do another event in February. So I want you guys to be, amongst the first that I announce, because you're going to be talking about pivoting to self-employment, what you need to know now. And I know there's a lot of folks out there that are struggling with finding another job, and then they're kind of looking around and going, wait a minute, I have a lot of knowledge and resources, and people are asking me for help with stuff. I could probably create a business. But then they're having to cobble together, do I need an LLC? What about a license? What about a website? And I know you guys have some structure in place for this. So let's start with, if you could, Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself. Damon, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into our topic here today.
Yeah, my background is in software and life sciences technology. So I did a dance in the technology space for sales for quite a while, launched an LLC. My inspiration was desperation. Quite frankly, I'd been laid off, was diagnosed with cancer, and had gone through a marital thing, and my life was a vortex of confusion. And I'm like, what the heck do I do with this? And so I decided that the last thing I really needed to do was to go dive back in full time to a job, launch my first technology consulting company, serving folks on every continent except Antarctica and Australia. And then I met Demond, and we went on from there. I'll let Demond introduce himself.
All right, perfect.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Yeah, my name is Demond Raybon, and I'm grounded and rooted in technology. That's my background, in technology and business infrastructure and technology infrastructure. And I've been doing that for over 20 years now. And essentially, as Chris mentioned, we met through a mutual friend, and we had some synergy. And essentially, what birthed Stephanomics is that we were grounded in our own synergy and working and building businesses, and found that we couldn't do it alone. We found that we needed some form of help, some form of guidance, and some level of a system that helps to build a predictable outcome when it comes to business launching. And we got together, and we saw synergy in that. Yeah. And so the concept of Stephanomics is so that we can stealthily help you build a foundation with the economics behind of building your business. So that's where Stephanomics comes from. We want to allow you to be able to penetrate before anybody knows that you actually is ready to take the world by storm. And so I love helping entrepreneurs. I love gifting information, and I love being able to empower people to make a difference in what they love and in their passion.
Yeah. And Brenda, along the way, I was fortunate enough to be a part of an $80 million IPO. I wasn't a principal investor, but that whole thing sort of changed my life, needless to say. I became a entrepreneur in residence at the Maryland Center for Entrepreneurship. So I had a bank of 20 entrepreneurs that I coached to help with their marketing stuff. So we've been in this world and this dance for more than a minute. We've been working as entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in between, back and forth. And we kind of know the dance. So we're delighted to have the opportunity to share on this platform.
All right. So here's what I'm going to do, guys. I want to kind of give you guys the floor, like visually the floor. And I'm going to pull myself off of screen and just let you guys kind of take us from here. I know there's a lot of folks that are watching today. I think we've got around 300 people watching live right now on LinkedIn. And I'm going to go pop over to YouTube and Facebook next. But there are some people who are thinking about pivoting to self-employment. Maybe they don't want that. I love how you said JOB, because I didn't say that. Like, corporate life is great until maybe you don't want to be there anymore, and then it's a job. But there are folks that are maybe on the fence, and they're thinking about this right now, and maybe some are already in it, and they're up to their neck, and they're not sure what to do. So I'm going to pull myself off, and I'll let you guys take it, and I'm going to come back in at about 10:50 to help with Q&A here.
Cool.
Okay.
So, one of the biggest challenges out there today is the fact that there are a ton of people looking for $70,000 jobs, right? I mean, there's probably millions of people looking for a gig that's between $70,000 and $100,000, but there are very few people who are out there really thinking about building a 6-figure to 7-figure business. We are of the mindset that you can have both worlds work for you. And at Stealthonomics, that stealth part that Demond was talking about, the world doesn't have to know that you actually are creating and building a viable exit strategy from your job. It means that you need to have structure, because let's face it, in this climate of quarantine, confusion, and the like, you don't need any more stress and any more pressure. But what Stealthonomics does is it pulls together everything that you need to have and do end to end as a new business person, puts it under one umbrella so that you make that one call, and we have our team and our technology and everything that evolves to make that happen for you. But the mindset to look for a job and the mindset to start a business are very, very, very similar. Let's take a look at it really quick. Let's slice and dice. If you're looking for a job, there are things or aspects of the job that you may not necessarily be qualified for, and other things that you are. Why walk away from it? If there's pieces of it that you are, why ask for the whole pizza? Why not just ask for a slice of the pie as a consultant, as a contractor, as an interim step to full-time employment, or as an option for engagement in other areas? So we're of the mindset that whether you're working a job or whether you're full-time, trying to launch a business, you're right. It's a perfect time to do it right now. Damon, you care to share?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the key components of what you're saying, as people are in the job search, or if they're in job transition, the most important piece when starting a business is capital. Whether you get that from whatever means that you have, one important means is to not do it where, and if you can avoid it, you don't necessarily want to have to bootstrap it. Bootstrapping is a grind. It's a tough environment, and it may not necessarily be built for everyone. So if you can transition and pivot while you have a predictable income in place, what we're keen on is allowing you to be able to use that predictable income to help facilitate your exit. So now when you're ready to exit, you actually have infrastructure, you have support system behind you, and now you can monetize whatever it is that you want to do. So that's really the key component, I think, of what you're saying, Chris, in terms of when you're making that exit and you want to leave that job, or either transition to another job or transition into entrepreneurship. Just be intentional and thoughtful about it, and just know that you don't have to do it alone. Having a team behind you is always a good thing. I'm all for team sports, and when you have the team, as Chris and I say, you can throw that no look pass and don't have the stress, anxiety, and uncertainty as it pertains to you moving on and starting your own business.
Yeah, the beautiful part about making that decision to go into business, it's not an either or decision, right? We believe that you can anchor on a job or keep looking for a job and launch a business at the same time. You can chew gum and dribble. There's this mindset that you have to be very myopic to do what you need to do to be successful. And it is true at certain points, but not all the time. So what happens if you've just been laid off? What happens if you've got very little bank? What happens if you suddenly had your world turned upside down? Well, again, I launched my first consulting company, became a six-figure company, and blew up really nicely by just the sheer motivation of desperation, right? So what do you have? You don't have money. You don't have credit, maybe. You don't have something. You've got credibility, right? Even if you don't have business credit to get, bank loans and capital equity, you have credibility. So the question I ask is, who have you helped? What have you done? What have you contributed within your infrastructure or network of people that you can go to a person and say, hey, look, this is my concept. This is my idea. This is what I'm thinking about doing. If I were able to get to this phase or this stage or accomplish this thing, would you support my business? Right? So that's if you don't actually have a business or any funds in place. And the biggest deal, what Damon and I are adamant about, we anchor around. I think Roxanne just made a comment. It is team. There is no way we would be building a six-figure company aspiring to drive a seven-figure business now if we couldn't, in fact, have a team wrapped around us. It wouldn't happen. So, here's real world. Damon works a regular gig. I work for a year and a half and just finished up last week at one of the fastest growing software companies in the world with a six-figure business, with six-figure income. I was able to walk away and transition because I understood that where I was a pit stop. It wasn't where I was going to build my house. It was where I had to pitch a tent. You know, I was going to be moving and continue moving on. What Stealthonomics gives us, and what Damon, you know, he's a technology beast. What Damon has been able to do is wrap around some technology infrastructure, along with the rest of our team, with some services that actually work with little effort as possible, but with the expertise in you know, up front. There was somebody a couple of days ago who basically said, hey, fake it till you make it. I don't believe in it. I'm a faith it till you make it. Let's make it clear. For people can smell a phony 1,000 miles away, and those that can't discern it, you don't want to be with. All right. And so we believe in yourself first, because if you don't believe in yourself first, it doesn't matter what anybody, you know, you can, you know, scam other people and do stuff and make them believe whatever. That's not the point. You've got to be able to sell yourself, believe in yourself first, believe in your concept, and believe in your service. And Damon can tell you, we've been servicing people for more than a minute, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important, you know, as I slide in, Chris, on the technology side, as an entrepreneur and a solopreneur, striking out, doing what you want to do, it can become overwhelming because you try to figure out, well, how can I figure this out? What solution set is going to allow me to do what I need to do? How can I compete with Fortune 500? You know, how do you compete with that, right? They have more money to throw at any problem than you may sniff in a year. So how can you compete with that? And what we allow people to do is leverage a system, leverage resources. You can be or have the appearance of a Fortune 500 company without having Fortune 500 finance behind you. And that's what we put in place for our entrepreneurs, is giving you access to subscriptions in the service base and service set that gives you a Fortune 500 outward exterior, so that on the back end, you can do what you do. And one key component that is real important is that when you have a professional exterior, Fortune 500 exterior and system in place for yourself, that allows you to walk into doors otherwise you may not have been able to get into. Because when they go and look at your web presence, they look at your outward exterior. Let's be honest with ourselves. Sometimes people will judge you by what they see.
Absolutely.
And so if they see a professional exterior when it comes to what you're doing in business, they don't have to know you're still working a 9-to-5, because when they look at your exterior from your business standpoint, they see a Fortune 500 company. We help you make sure that you have those things in place so that you can have that exterior, and so that you can get in those doors, which helps you to plot that exit.
Right. So, Damon, one of the challenges that we have a lot of times is, like, my nickname, so my business nickname is the janitor. It's because that we find ourselves many times cleaning up a lot of junk and a lot of mess from a lot of people that have called themselves so-called experts. Okay. And here's my quote. The fact is that experts are the ones who built the Titanic. Okay. Experts built the Titanic. So expertise actually has a shelf life. The same thing that I did 8 years ago, I earned $100,000 from recovering a tweet, and approaching a client and saying, hey, I can get these bodies of people around and blah, 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 blah. I earned 6 figures on a single tweet that I captured and drove to a lead. I can't do that today. If I anchored my expertise on that one action or one success or one book or one thing, then what you're going to find is that your expertise has a shelf life. It's not viable anymore. It's like a bad carton of milk. You bought it when it was good, but it's not good anymore. So
it has an expiration date.
Right? It has an expiration date. So where do you go to get expertise? Right? Your expertise is going to be wrapped around people who can actually show you third-party accountability. Right? They can show you a third party that said, you know, Damon did, Chris did, you know, Helen did, Rebecca did, whatever, right? Those things matter. Today, because we're all locked into being these 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch images in Zoom or virtual meetings, People don't necessarily have the opportunity to grow to know you in the fuller expression of who you are. The only thing they can look at is your results, the breadcrumbs of your results. So appearance matters. Expertise matters most, because let's understand, a good marketing plan is not a good business plan necessarily, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. And I think was also key from what you're talking about. We actually have some of our workshops and coaching materials around it. The velocity of change. Being that I come from a space of technology, it can still also correlate to skill set. You always have to be evolving, making sure you understand the industry, making sure you can also anticipate change and know where the winds is going to take your sales. For instance, no one could have predicted what we was going to be in to this extent with COVID. But for those individuals who cast their sails and was able to really shift with the tides of the wind, are now still in business. They're now still being productive. They was able to pivot because they did not have a business that was so anchored and rooted in, as Chris was saying, a area of expertise that then now somewhat can become obsolete. So you have to be able to change with the velocity of change, because change always comes.
Right. So, I mean, inside our house, we basically say that we've got to be the best at learning, unlearning, and relearning as quickly as possible. Everything is changing so fast. And so if you're older, understand your age is not an impediment. Maybe it's your energy, right? You got to bring great energy to whatever you're doing, however you're doing it. You can use the same energy to basically light a room. But if you put that energy through the tip of a pen, it's a laser, cuts through steel, right? So how do you want to distribute your energy? How do you really, really want to do what you really, really want to do? Beautiful example. My son is a world-class choreographer. I mean, all over the world, Jennifer Hudson, Ariana Grande doing his thing, that kind of thing. That whole business is shut down. He came to me and he basically said, I don't know what to do. And he thought about it on his own. It didn't lead him. He's got, in the last month and a half, 2 real estate licenses, one in Cali, one in Maryland. Why? Because he understands that the dynamics of his profession have changed as such that my preaching, hey, son, you need a plan B, you need a plan B, you plan B, was mute then. But now his pain is significant enough where he is realizing I've got to learn it. I've got to unlearn my whole gig and what my expectations were. I've got to relearn or learn something else, and I've got to relearn some other stuff. And it's this perpetual cycle. The beauty is this: if you're smart and you have an idea, you're in your ideation phase for a business, a concept, you don't have that locked and loaded yet. Now you have the mindset where you can actually decide, who do I want with me on my team? Who do I want to partner with? Who do I want to collaborate with? Why do I want to compete? Right? So we talk about the 3 C's in our business, right? And in life in general. I ask the first C, competency. Who can I have a conversation with where I don't have to translate everything I'm saying? And they get it and they're growing on their own. And then there's the chemistry. Do we really flow and grow? Do we vibe? How's our energy together? Can I call Damon and I used to wake up at, we used to hit it at 7 o'clock in the morning and have our discussion meditation thing going together as a team, right? And then, but beyond competency and chemistry, you've got to have character.
That's key.
Character. So that's how we anchor it. That's how we recommend we approach it. We've got a great book, 5 things you need to know before you quit your job. And they speak to establishing situational awareness, know the marketplace, getting your funding together, picking a team, and all the other nuances. Check it out. We have the download available.
All right. So guys, we're going to start to open this up for Q&A. And I don't know if you've been watching the chat. I've been trying to pull up some of the comments on screen. People are loving your genuineness, your authenticity. And what I have to say is, when I first was chatting with you guys, I was like, there's kind of paths, you think you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get a corporate job and you're supposed to move up the ladder and then you're supposed to do all these things. And then, yeah, but my boss wasn't supposed to tell me I'm no longer working. That wasn't supposed to happen.
Right,
and
right.
There's many people that might be watching here today who are kind of they're in this career transition phase, and they've been here. And I see one person saying, I've been out for 6 or more months. Is ageism a thing? Thoughts on that? What are your thoughts? Is ageism a thing? And then if they're feeling that way, thoughts on self-employment versus staying in a corporate job.
Right. So, look, I'm over 50 for sure. Right. And ageism is a thing, and it's okay. Right. Everybody doesn't get it. Everybody doesn't have to. We have to get to the point where we stop looking to everybody else for permission, for validation, affirmation. You know who you are, you know what your skills are like, and you have to ask yourself in this marketplace for what you say you really want to do. How do you want to reposition yourself, reimagine yourself, and repurpose yourself to match your core competency, skill sets, passion, and the like? If you're still looking to yesterday's standard for tomorrow's acceptance, you're jacked from the start.
Yeah, great point.
And also, one thing I would like people to also realize, and this was a trend before COVID happened, but there's a trend where you're having more solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, freelancers are entering the marketplace. You have websites like Upwork, Freelancer, and a few others I can't think of right now off the top of my head, but they are basically making it more viable for people like yourselves who are looking for opportunities to basically tap into that consultant space. Here in Charlotte, North Carolina, we found that there's opportunity in the government. The government is hungry for content. So that means that's your expertise. You can monetize your expertise. So just know that even if, regardless of how old you are, I'm a strong believer in that you always continue to learn. You never stop learning, because if you do, then it's gonna be a problem for you. So if you are experiencing ageism or just having those difficulties, just think of it from a different perspective. You have value. You just have to look at where that value can be most utilized.
Right.
Awesome. And that the thought I like to say is, when you're, some people say mature job workers or, ageism. I like to say you're experience rich. So change that mindset. You are experience rich. So think about yourself, not as a mature worker, not as age 50 plus looking for a job. You're experience rich. You have experience that some of your competitors in the job market don't have. And I want to shift gears to move into one of our first questions. Chris or Damon, I'm not sure who wants to take this first, but a couple questions have come in about financing your business. And here's one from Heather. Thoughts about approaching one for capital. And another question related to that was, how do you build a team if you don't have a lot of money? So help us out with that if you could.
I'll take it. Okay.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. So the first thing, I love the money. I love, I don't have money, questions, scenarios, because they're pretty common. That's the fun spot for me, because I've been there. I mentioned that, a lot of times you won't have money. So we use the FF&F, the friends, family, and frat. Okay. But to build that, the first thing that you've got to have is a business plan. And you talk to Tisha or anybody else, I told her nobody has a business for me unless you've got a business plan. It's a hobby. It's an expensive hobby, because you can't tell me your exit strategy. And if you're going to go out and ask somebody for funding or money, and you say, hey, I've got this great concept, these products, these ideas, even grandma who has bank and and loves you to death deserves to know, what your plan is for her money and how you plan to return her investment. What's her ROI going to be? And so good feelings are good feelings, but business is business. Right. So at least even give grandma and your brother and your soror, everybody a break. Get a business plan, illustrate how you're going to go about doing what you do. And by virtue of the fact that, guess what? Your business plan is a very dynamic, living, breathing thing. It changes all the time, but at least it's a roadmap. It's like GPS for your business. And sometimes it'll say recalculating, right? But it's okay. The fact that you got it and you can bring it to somebody says that you're serious.
Love it. Great piece of advice. Damon, anything you want to add to that?
Chris encapsulated it. He did a good job, but just know not only that you can use friends, family, frat, there are also untraditional, banking options as well. I can, offline, I don't want to take up too much time, but we can share that information with you as well. Some people that's transitioning out of a job there's ways you can bootstrap your business lunch by just using your 401k, rolling into your business tax-free. So, there's things out there that you can do.
Yeah. Great. And I see another kind of comment coming in from Gian. Hey, G, how you doing? And it's actually a nice nod. We've got Diane Darling, who's going to be speaking with us later about mindset. But I strongly believe, having gone through this transition of leaving corporate, going into your own business, there is an important element of mindset. And I remember, guys, I'm not sure if did people tell you before you went on your own, you could be a consultant, you could be on your own, and you were like, no, I can't do that. I mean, did you find that there was a tipping point to you believing it and getting into that mindset before you were kind of successful on your own?
Well, for me, I guess I'm a unique case. I've been an entrepreneur mindset since I was basically selling candy out of my house in Atlanta as a kid. So, and in college, selling bologna sandwiches to get a little extra change and written out VHS tapes. So, for me personally, I've always had the mindset of I want to have my own. I want to do my own. And I spent, time figuring it out, what can I do to put myself in the best position to achieve that? So, but mindset is key. If your mindset is telling you that you can't, then you're going to have to overcome that, because sometimes you're going to have to be your biggest cheerleader.
Yeah. There'll be days you wake up and nobody says anything good about you except you. Okay.
That's hard. So guys, we're rounding up the half hour here. I'm going to bring our next 3 panelists in just so we have them kind of waiting in the wings. I think I see 2 of them so far. So Christine, I'm going to bring you up on screen here, and then we're going to finish off with maybe an additional question or 2. Christine, how are you doing today?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. Thank you for coming. Anna, how are you doing?
Fantastic. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Good. Thanks for joining, ladies. And we're just going to finish off with Damon and Chris here, and I'll put you back in the green room for just a minute, and then we'll be pulling both of you up. I like to do that quick little audio check to make sure we can hear you. And we have 1 other additional speaker that will be joining. So as we start to wrap here today, guys, this has been just an amazing chat. I'm so glad Tisha recommended you, and I don't see her in chat, but I'll make sure to ping her later on and make sure to share the video with her. Final comments, Devon, we'll start with you. Final comments, any shout outs, any offers you want to share with the group as we wrap, and then we'll go to Chris next. Oh, I think you may be muted. This is the universal, we can't hear you.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. One thing I want to share is that we do have a 8 first best step system that we share, just like we've been saying all along. You don't have to do this alone. We have, things in place that's very accessible that can get you on the roadmap of where you want to go in business. So we can definitely help you with that. I'm open to have discussions offline. They can definitely reach out to me, and we can help position them for the best business launch possible, and know that, they can go to their wife or husband and say, hey, you know what, we have a plan and we have a support structure that, we can basically help you with. And also on that LinkedIn, it's actually, I updated it. I'm sorry. It's going to actually be my first and last name.
Okay. So this right now, I think is your LinkedIn URL, but you said did you update it, or you're going to update it?
Yeah, I did already. It's going to be Damon Raybon.
Okay. I'll see if I can pull that up. And while I pull up Chris, and then Chris, any final comments or anything you'd like to share with the group here?
Yeah. You get more of what you focus on, period. So if you're focusing on the lack that your lack, your loss, et cetera, as opposed to being inspired by the potential for opportunity, every call you make, every application you submit, every contact you make, you should be asking yourself, not just about the job, but what, instead of asking for the whole slice, for the whole pie, ask for a slice. Every contact is an upside. Everything that you do is freaking awesome. You need wins in your life. And so daily wins mean, wow, I just made a potential business contact, or maybe I just met my first potential customer, and it may not be a job. So go for it.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. And I did find it, Damon Raybon. So redirecting there. And are you guys, both of you, are you open to invitations from people that are watching the show here today?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Right. Thank you, guys. And I want to remind everybody, if you do send out invitations to our speakers, which I highly recommend that you do, mention that you were watching the LinkedIn Live-a-thon today. If there was something particularly memorable. I'm loving the dollar thing that's above your plaque in the back.
Hey,
that's the mindset. It's all about the mindset, right?
Got to keep it right. I'm telling you.
I love it. Guys, thank you so much. I'd love it if you could go into the LinkedIn live stream and watch for comments. There's a lot of comments and conversation going on around your talk right now. If we didn't get to questions, there might be a few floating out there as well.
Okay, great. Appreciate
All right.
you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day. Thank you so much, Devon. Thanks, Chris. All right. So we're going to move us along here. And I'm doing a little piloting, co-piloting behind the scenes here, guys. I'm solo. I don't have like a crew running with me. So I'm kind of going solo behind the scenes here. And I'm going to bring out, hey, Carrie, how are you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Good. Hold on just 1 second here. And then we'll bring Christine back on. Hello, Christine.
Hi.
Hello, hello. And then Anna, how are you, Anna?
Doing great.
Good. So that was my my audio and video check for my next 3 panelists. And
Brilliant.
Yeah, and I want to welcome anybody who is watching. We're starting off our second hour of today's LinkedIn Live-a-thon for job seekers. And this, I had an idea. It was in the beginning of January. I'm like, I've got a large network. I've got LinkedIn. A lot of people are looking for work. I'm going to pull together a panel of people and do a LinkedIn Live-a-thon. I did one in January, and then I'm like, it was so great. I'm like, we're going to do another one in February. I'm planning one for March as well right now. But when I booked my speakers, I had everything kind of lined up, and I had an email from a speaker last night, and she's unfortunately has come down ill. And her talk, it was scheduled to be on salary negotiation in 2021. So just a quick backstory, and then we're going to jump into this topic. So this was last night around, I think 7 or 8, I got the message from the speaker, and it happens. You know, people get sick, you get cancellations. But I've got, I think 1,600 people registered for today. I'm like, we got to keep the show going. So I started reaching out to people. We were talking earlier about personal branding. So think about personal brand. I started reaching out to people in my network and asking them one by one. And of course, it was the night before, 9 o'clock at night. Nobody's available. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to worry about this because we'll figure it out. But I put a post on LinkedIn at probably 9:30. And I put the post up. My daughter and I sat down to watch a movie. And then I'm like, the universe will take care of this. And it did, because all 3 of you either were delivered to me by another connection or raised your hand and said, how can I help? So I want to if we could just take a moment for each of you, maybe a minute for each of you. Tell us who you are and what's your business all about. And then we're going to be getting into a salary discussion here today. We're going to talk about salary negotiation for job seekers. So Carrie, why don't you start if you could?
Sure. Well, good morning, everyone. And Brenda, thanks for having me today. Excited to have this discussion. So I founded Purple Squirrel Advisors about 6 years ago. We're a boutique executive search firm. We're based in Troy, Michigan. We work primarily with companies, small to mid-sized companies, entrepreneurial owned or private equity backed. And we place leadership talent in 4 functional areas: accounting and finance, HR, operations, and sales and marketing. We have 6 people on our team, and we've covered searches coast to coast.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. And we met originally, I can't even remember, was it through Inform or Troy Chamber or one of those groups, but we've kept in contact. And I know you were a speaker at Together Digital not too long ago too. So, and it was like in my mind, I'm like, of course, Carrie, why didn't they think about Carrie? But thank you so much for making the time to join us here today.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So I can't remember who was next. So I'm just going to pull up Christine next. And Christine, I think you were tagged in the post last night. I think that's how, this is our first time talking, right?
It is. It's really wonderful to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Robinson. I'm the resource management leader for Baker Tilly, a top 10 accounting and consulting firm with offices throughout the country. I actually serve on the People Solutions leadership team for the firm and oversee a team of very talented professionals that are based throughout the country as well. I'm here today really to offer some advice from personal experience as well as from the perspective of a hiring manager. And I'm really thrilled to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christine. And do you remember who it was that tagged you in the post?
We're mutually connected to Tom Daniels.
Okay, Tom Daniels. So I'll have to give a little shout out and thank you to Tom. And I was telling my family, and I'm like, somebody canceled, and my son's like, are you worried? I'm like, I'm not at all. I'm not at all worried. And even if I don't have someone jumping into that spot, I'll just pull up people from the audience to do it. But thank you, Christine, for making the time to join us here today.
Of course.
All right, Anna. So Anna, you came to me by way of, who was it? Was it Gina?
Well, we both have G as a BFF, but Adam, the CFO that gives you tips on how to employ your children without tax implications. He's amazing.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about what
last
your
name.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Tell us a little bit about your business if you could.
So I'm the founder of Career BFF. It's a job search strategy and career coaching solo entrepreneurship. I have been an agency and corporate recruiter for 15 plus years. So taking that experience to assist job seekers in, networking, marketing themselves, learning how to be visible on LinkedIn, and to negotiate offers and land work that aligns with their purpose and their passion.
Great. Well, thank you for the introduction. And did you see the post last night, or did someone tag you? Do you remember?
Adam tagged me.
Did he? That's awesome. So it just kind of worked out.
Yeah, to your point about like paying it forward, I had tagged him and introduced him to be on a different show like earlier in the year. So it all just comes full circle. It's beautiful.
There you go. Awesome.
So, Brenda, I wanted to just point out really quick, the way that I heard about it was my sister, Amy Whipple, actually sent me a text and said, hey, Brenda's looking for some help with salary negotiations. I think you should, if you're free, you should do this. And so that was how I heard about it. I wasn't really looking at LinkedIn last night at that time. So that's the power of the network for sure.
Yeah, I was even thinking, who's on LinkedIn Friday night at 10 o'clock at night? But I'm like, whatever, somebody will see it. And I knew because it was a large event, that might be a little bit of a draw for it too. So, all right. So we're talking here today, again, about salary negotiation. I'm going to pull our topic back up on screen for folks. And just to get our conversation started, and Carrie, since you're on screen, I'm going to start with you. People are watching. Some people are in career transition, or they may be working but looking, but feeling a bit unsure of, can I negotiate salary right now? Should I just take that offer, whatever they give me? I mean, what's your response to that?
Well, so it's interesting because I just recently posted a poll about like, what do people think? Are we in a candidate's market or a client's market? And I personally believe it's a candidate's market still. And so I would not advise for people to settle for something less than, what they think their market value is. There's still a lot of demand for great talent. And so I think that you have to go into any situation with confidence about what you bring to the table. And, there are some challenging issues going on, certainly, but that doesn't take away from the fact that employers really need great talent. And if it's actually now more than ever, is the way I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anna or Christina, anything to add to that? Or Christine, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would love to echo what Carrie said. I think organizations understand the cost of a hire. If they lowball them, they're increasing the risk and the chance of turnover. So it's about quality talent. And so I'm seeing, these pockets definitely increase. I'm still seeing competitive salaries, and employers expect candidates to negotiate or, counter initial offers. But putting kind of my recruiting hat on, there's a lot of mixed information about how do you have these conversations? Do you wait until you get an offer, or do you have them, earlier in the conversation? And my personal preference is, have conversations earlier, because then you decrease the chances of the offer and the opportunity falling apart at the end of, and there's nothing worse than getting through, 2 to 10 interviews, depending on your level, and not being on the same page with your recruiters or your hiring managers.
Great. Christine, anything to add to that?
Absolutely. I could not agree more. I would say know your worth. The fact that you're in a transition period, honestly, that's irrelevant. That does not diminish your expertise, your skill set, or the passion for what you do. And you really can't quantify that. So really project that confidence. It really comes across. And I would say too, from a hiring manager's perspective, speaking from experience, you want to see that confidence in the person that you're bringing on. Someone who knows what they're after and is displaying that professional maturity to be direct. Super important.
Yeah. And someone I asked during the interview, which made me think of one of the points that was mentioned earlier. At what point do you bring up salary? I mean, as a candidate, do you wait and let the interviewer or recruiter bring that up? And, if they ask, what are you looking for? I mean, how do you start that? It's like a dance, right? Like who says the first number, and at what point do you start that conversation? Christina, and since you're on screen, I'll have you start, and then we'll flip around if that's okay.
Absolutely. Again, I would say from experience, you want to be direct, as I was describing. So I do think it will naturally come across in the course of conversation. But to echo some of the points that were made earlier, you want to be direct right from the start. And most importantly, be consistent so that all parties are on the same page about what your expectations are right from the start. So once you have that figure in mind and you know what you're after, be crisp and clear about that number.
Okay, Anna or Carrie, did you want to add to that?
I agree. It's the delicate dance, right? And having been in the agency recruiter and corporate recruiter seat, it can be a slippery slope. In a lot of states, it's illegal to ask about salary. And, candidates do not have to divulge their previous salary numbers. I usually recommend they respond with a question and say, can you let me know what is the budgeted range for the salary? And to Christine's point, as a hiring manager, they have a budget. They do their staffing budgets every quarter, every year. So, if the recruiter's not saying, hey, Brenda, this position is, 60 to 75 with a 6.5% bonus, does that fall within or align with your salary goals? It can just be a yes or no question. And the candidate can say, well, I'm on the higher end, or of course, or I want to keep interviewing to learn more, and then I can more adequately answer that question, but we're on the same ball field.
Right.
Okay. Carrie, do you want to add anything onto that?
Yeah, no, I absolutely think it's important to be open from the beginning and have those conversations, because it's not going to be a good use of anyone's time if there's a misalignment on salary expectations and the budget. But I also think it's important to think about total compensation and other benefits that are really important, because we want to know that stuff right out of the gates as well. What's important to you when it comes to your compensation and benefit offering. Some candidates really need, or really value vacation over, an extra 5K of salary, or, there's different levers that you can pull when you're thinking about trying to get an offer to work. And so we want to know what all of those important factors are. And again, just like Anna said, we don't pin candidates down on what are you making, because it is illegal in many states, but we at least need to have a general discussion around expectations to make sure that there's going to be some alignment.
Okay, I'm just going to pause for a second here and say, Carrie,
there's a lot of good questions.
Should we be all jealous that you're in a very beautiful environment right now?
Can you negotiate working from a place like that?
Yes. Where are you in Florida? Where are you at today?
I'm actually in the Fort Myers, Florida area.
Oh, very good. And indulge us, because here in Michigan it's 20 degrees. What's the temperature there today?
It was in the mid 60s this morning, but it usually gets up to, it's been in the 80s all week. So
that's nice. And I know there's people that are watching from around the country and around the world today. So there's different weather climates. And I know there's a lot of really challenging things happening in the country right now in Texas and whatnot too. But our thoughts and prayers are obviously with everyone here today. I was paused and I'm like, are those palm trees behind it? No, that's like a live background in behind you. I want to shift back to, we've had a couple questions about researching, and John Keller in particular had asked this question. So I'll start with you, Carrie, and then we'll go to Anna and Christine. How do we determine what the salary should be? What tools, websites would you recommend? How should people be looking that up? Should they look it up?
Yeah, there's so many great tools online. There's salary.com. There's a variety of other websites. I just often, if it's a new search, a different market that I'm not familiar with, I'll just start with Google and say, what's the average salary for X position in this location? And I'll start getting information. But salary.com I found has some good information. And then I know you can use Glassdoor and other resources to find more company specific information. But I'd love to hear from Anna and Christine on other resources as well.
I love the LinkedIn salary insights. It's just linkedin.com/salary. And there's a lot of good insights in there. And I feel like their data is solid because recruiters and organizations are putting job opportunities in the system with the salary range. And then having worked on the agency side, if you are working with agency recruiters, oftentimes they provide salary guides. So definitely be speaking to your account manager to see when they launch their, it's usually around this time for this current year.
Okay. And Christine, anything to add on to that in terms of like places people could look or resources to verify the information?
Sure. All of what was already described, I agree with 100%. I also use LinkedIn for my personal experience. And I think too, one other point that was mentioned earlier is being open-minded and a little bit flexible about some of those points. Perhaps there's a creative solution, one that you haven't thought of, right? Stock options, expanded benefits, for example. So ultimately, you're not necessarily wanting to position yourself and be too tied to a specific number figure. Be willing to collaborate. Ultimately, from a hiring manager's perspective, someone that truly values what you're bringing to the table, they're going to want you to feel good about joining their team.
Now, wait a minute. You can negotiate things other than money. You can negotiate benefits. Like some people might be watching and they may have missed that you just said that. So I want to come back to that point. What do you mean we can negotiate benefits? Could you clarify on that?
Absolutely. So, I think also, in today's world, given many of us are in the virtual environment, there's a ton of flexibility related to that. And so I would really encourage folks to think about all of those different things. What matters to you? So I heard a comment earlier around vacation, right? Perhaps you're dealing with virtual learning at school, right? People have a lot of different things that are on their plates right now that they're trying to balance and work through. And you might have certain things that are possibly more important to you than that salary figure.
Yeah. And I would comment, I think vacation is often something that we can tweak within reason. It's, there's usually a certain level of vacation that the employees are brought in at. But if you could say, well, listen, I'm 15 years into my career, I've already reached 15 or 20 days or whatever it is. I don't want to go all the way back to this entry point at your company of 5 or 10 days. Usually that's something that our clients can work through. But one other point that I would make is that on the topic of flexibility and negotiation, we've recently seen some clients kind of put in targets for once we achieve this level, then your salary will go to X. And they've laid out very clear paths of future increases because maybe the company is at a size right now where they just can't accommodate, the salary expectation, but they're saying, hey, let's work together. We're going to create a path to get there and we'll put it in writing along with these milestones. And so that's another way, if somebody's really thinking about the long term and the big picture, there's ways to do that if you've got an open mind.
Absolutely. The other thing I think I have seen some of is a sign-on bonus, which if you're, pulling talent from a competitor, that is a great incentive that you can also ask for. Or if the salary is in a budgeted range and you're a little bit over it, have those conversations early. Again, kind of going back also to some of the questions. If you're doing the discovery and asking thoughtful questions and really getting the lay of the land of the big picture of the opportunity, you're more empowered to talk about salary and negotiations and different things that you can do as you're leading up to that process. So, maximize those first phone calls and really, have your recruiter or that first line of contact give you as much details as possible, because it's harder when you're further along in the process to go back and then be like, oh, well, you only pay for the employees' benefits or not the spouses or the children. And so it goes back to really doing your due diligence, but then not being afraid to ask as well and having, to their point, that confidence.
Good point. And I actually once upon a time negotiated the salary was fixed for the position. This was back in my corporate days. The salary was fixed and I was taking a decrease in salary to take on the new position. And I had a good level of experience. I was very excited about the job. And I asked the question about medical benefits, and it was the standard, I think it was a 90-day waiting period, and I had a family, and I said, part of what's holding me back from this is the benefits. So can you start me right away or after 30 days? I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to change a job and then leave. And, they gave me medical benefits right away. And I mean, that to me, I don't know what COBRA was at the time. I think it was like $1,200 or $1,500 a month for the family. And that would have been an additional decrease in my income. So is that common? Was that just an anomaly? Have you all seen that happen?
So I'll comment really quick on that. Yeah. So we've seen a lot of times it's very difficult for companies to amend their entry point into the particular benefits. But what we've seen instead is if there is that 90-day waiting period or longer, we've seen companies offer to pay for the COBRA benefits or the difference. So let's say your out of pocket is, $300 a month, $300 for a month for the premiums. And if you go to COBRA, it's going to be $1,100. They'll get the COBRA bills and then get reimbursed for that difference via an expense report until the company benefits kick in. So that we've seen it, happen quite often, actually, especially with those longer waiting periods.
Okay. Anyone else want to add on to that? No, we can keep going. So I want to ask the question too, because I know like sometimes salary negotiation can feel weird. I feel like you've already told me you want to hire me. You want to give me this salary. You want me to join your team, especially if I'm not working. I'm like, I don't want to feel like I don't want to seem greedy by negotiating. I should just take what you've offered me, right? Thoughts?
I can take that one. I think it's very understandable. This is not a topic that we talk about frequently. It's very personal. And so it's very understandable that it's a little bit awkward when you're talking about salary. I think the thing is, it's par for the course. You should expect going into these discussions that this is something that's going to come up. So really, I would say the best way of dealing with that feeling of discomfort is to be prepared. Do your research. Don't allow yourself to be caught off guard by the question, as we've talked about. And really doing that research and being prepared is going to put you in a position of strength as you have these conversations. The other thing that I would say is keep in mind, your hiring manager will likely see the way that you handle this situation as an indication of your working style as well. So that's an important piece. It gives them a little bit more insight into what they would have had from you versus what they would have seen in the interview process. And so really put some thought into how you're going to approach the dialogue related to the salary discussion. The ideal outcome is to establish yourself as someone who is confident, who knows what they want, but is also willing to collaborate to reach the optimal outcome and really leave feeling good about the discussion.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think it also goes back to, those initial conversations with understanding why the position is open. What is the hiring manager's perception of quality? What keeps them up at night? What are the problems that this position is going to solve? And then as you're going through the process, it's kind of like the sales concept, like making sure that you're always hitting home the impact that you can make as a candidate, which is elevating that worth. You're demonstrating that confidence. You're getting them to nod their head, get excited. And then as you've continued to have those conversations, when you get to the table, you are at that, you have the rapport with the hiring manager and the recruiter. Everyone's on the same page. And that's why I think that because your recruiter is your champion. And if we don't have transparency and trust, we're chasing around the hiring managers to get feedback and insights and what their budget is, and if they have to get approval from a C-suite or a VP. So, it minimizes things falling through the cracks, and even just little things like understanding how long the position has been open, and highlighting your availability and offering, another point of negotiation is coming in as contractor, right? To kind of test them out, and then they can test you out. And I know, Carrie, you appreciate that with your business, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And one thing that I would say on the negotiation is we always encourage our candidates, first of all, you've got to begin the negotiation with, excitement about the role. It's got, the opportunity has to be interesting. And it's listen, I want to be here. Everything I've learned sounds like a great fit. To your point, Anna, I know I can come in and add value. If we could just modify just a few of these things, that's going to make everything come together. And so I think kind of the idea of the sandwich of start with something positive, go to what you need, and then end with something positive again, kind of sandwich that harder message between two, positive messages about the role and the fit that you bring.
Great. And I want to ask another question too. This is something, I know people are wondering. I know somebody doesn't want to ask it. What if during the interview, they don't give you a salary range, but they say, Brenda, we're very interested in you. Can you tell us what are your expectations for this position? Do you give them a range? Do you give them a number? Who'd like to start us off there? see Anna pausing, so I'm throwing it to Anna for this.
Okay. Again, I'm going to go based on my own experience. And that is just asking more questions, because I feel like being naturally inquisitive and really being curious and excited, because, energy and enthusiasm goes a long way. That, again, going back to Christine's point, if you are asking these great questions, it shows that level of dedication and thoroughness. It's that beginning of what it would be like to work with you. And so there's nothing wrong with saying, at this stage in the interview process, I think we need to do some more discovery, get to know each other a little bit better before we dive into the conversation. And I'm saying that as someone who says, talk about money early and often, and also trust your intuition and in that regard. And all connecting all the points. If you've done the research, maybe had some informational interviews, looked at the data online, you have somewhat of a foundation. But it's a tricky question. But my personal, if I was sitting across the table from someone, would just be going back to some of those open-ended questions to get more insights, and then listen to my gut to figure out if I would be willing to give a range. And if I was, it would be a wide range, but I would have a base knowledge of what that typically would look like for that position. So it's tricky.
Now, I've heard, and maybe incorrectly, I'm not the salary expert at all, but I've heard, and I've used this approach myself, when they ask that question point blank, and whoever puts the number out first is kind of in a losing position, right? So what I've usually said is, well, thanks for asking the question. Based on the research that I've done, and at this point this is probably the second or third round. And if this is the first interview, I'm not giving them any number until I learn more. But at the second or third round, I've already done my research. Based on my research with this industry in our current market, with a person with my level of experience and my level of education, I believe the range would be 90 to 120. Mm-hmm. And based on my level of experience, I think I'd be more towards the top end of the spectrum. Because then it's market based. And I want to add to that too. I don't know if you all have heard of this, ladies, but if you go on Salary or Pay Scale or any of those sites, as women, I'm speaking to the women right now, do not put in your gender when you put in your salary calculator, because
right.
Put in female, it goes lower.
Right down, yeah.
See that? Yeah. So any other thoughts there on offering out numbers when asked that question point blank?
I would add too that there isn't a right answer. So don't get too caught up in it has to be a percentage, or it has to be a range, or I've put myself at a disadvantage. I think it's be direct, know what it is that you're after. Generally speaking, experienced hiring managers know that they're not going to be able to attract top talent without compensating them fairly. So assume that positive intent, right?
Right.
You don't generally want to enter into a long, drawn out salary negotiation process. And keep in mind, you don't necessarily have to be on the defensive, so this isn't necessarily and shouldn't be a contentious conversation going into it. Absolutely. There is likely some wiggle room, I would think, right, in your initial offer. But overall, I would advise adjusting how much you want to push based on what you truly believe is reasonable. And if you started from that place of being reasonable.
Wonderful. Well, I see that we're starting to get towards the 11:30 hour, and I just want to say hi to Pam real quick. Hey, Pam, how are you doing today?
Good. How about you?
Good. Quick little audio video check there. And I want to thank each of you, Christine, Carrie, and Anna. This was literally last minute. If anyone's just tuning in now, I had a speaker cancellation due to illness last minute, and I put out an ask to the LinkedIn universe, and Christine and Anna and Carrie came to me or were referred to me. I want to give each of you the opportunity for any final comments, any shout outs you'd like to give or whatnot. So Christine, since you're on screen, we'll start with you.
If you don't take anything else away, I would say, again, I would just emphasize know your worth. It's the most important piece.
Awesome. And Christine, are you open to invitations for people if they want to connect with you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely.
All right, guys. And reminder, when you invite Christine to connect, mention that you saw her on today's LinkedIn Live-a-thon. If there's something particularly memorable, give her a shout out there. Thank you so much, Christine. And we're going to pull up Carrie next. Hey, Carrie.
Hi, sorry. Thank you so much for being here, Brenda. And it was great to hear from the other panelists, Christine and Anna. So my just parting words or parting comments advice would be really think about total compensation and what elements of the total compensation are most important to you and your family, and be transparent about those out of the gates when you're pursuing something so that you don't end up misaligned, at the final stages.
Yeah, and the key point too, I think, is negotiation at the point of the offer is where you have the most leverage too, Carrie, right? Like after you get the job, 6 months later, you can't come back and say, I want more money.
Yeah, no, exactly. You've got to figure those things out. What's going to make it long-term attractive, a good fit. Work on those things, before you sign on the dotted line.
All right. Thank you so much, Carrie. And then Anna, any final comments for the group here?
So I just encourage people to really try to nourish their relationships with their first line recruiters and ask those probing questions so that they can, be your champion and put the business cases in front of the right decision makers to get you what you're worth. And so that is my point. And I want to shout out Jihan as who's in the comments, and I'll be sure to go back and respond to a bunch of comments. And I'm always open to connections. So please feel free to reach out.
All right, ladies, thank you so much, Anna, Carrie, and Christine. It was a pleasure. Thank you for being my last minute impromptu speakers. This was a great discussion. Thank you so much. And I would invite each of you, if you'd like, you can go ahead and go out into the live stream. If you go out, you can find it on LinkedIn. And what I'm going to do now is I'll remove you each from the stream, and then we'll move on to
thanks for having us,
ladies. Thank you so much. Hey, Pam, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Brenda. How about you? This is very exciting.
Good. Well, I'm going
to move this over a little bit.
So set up here. Yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah, get everything. You're a reader, it looks like, Pam. You've got some books in your background.
I am an amazing reader. In fact, when I was young, I complained to my parents that my brother always got books, but I never got books as presents. So I started getting the coffee table books and all the books. So awesome. I love to read.
Good. Well, Pam, I am very delighted to have you on the session here today. And if you guys are just joining us, we're in our kind of moving into our second full hour here of the LinkedIn Live-a-thon for job seekers. And this is an event I just kind of pulled together impromptu. I had a caffeine burst of inspiration in January. I said I should do something. And this is the second month we're doing this event. And Pam, you and I met. Remind me, was it just through the webinar series, or was it through Inform or something beforehand? Do you remember where
I think we met at a LinkedIn thing in passing a few years ago at Tech Town. Is that what we decided? At Wayne, we were both in the audience, I think, at that point.
Do you remember who was the presenter? I'm blanking.
A woman.
Yes, it was a woman. I'll think about it. We'll get back to it was somebody who does sales training for LinkedIn in Metro Detroit. She doesn't work for LinkedIn. She's independent. I'll keep thinking about her name, and my brain will percolate on that. But Pam, we're here today to talk about communication tips for job seekers. So if you could, why don't you start by giving us a bit of an introduction? Who are you and what's your business? And then we'll jump in here.
So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if I can get this to work.
And let me pull it up onto live stream.
There we go. It's working. So I made my own presentation for today. So let's see if I can get, so about me. I am Pam Lippett, Detroit area. I've owned small businesses, and I've served as executive director of a few nonprofits. And right now I'm taking all that information and putting it into the Hill Street Group, where I work with startups, small businesses, nonprofits, to craft your communication and marketing strategies so that everybody is cohesive on and speaking from the same point of view. There's nothing worse than a sales team speaking with different voices. You really want to have a connection there. I'm also a mentor for the Ann Arbor Spark Entrepreneurship Bootcamp, say that 6 times fast, and for Wayne State University's Tech Town Ask an Expert program. One of the earlier speakers said something about, thinking that it's odd to call yourself an expert. I have to stop apologizing every time I say I'm in the Ask an Expert program, because each time I just kind of giggle about it. So that's who I am. But what I really love to do is either speak or be on someone's pro radio or podcast program. There I am with Chris Holman. Everyone in the Michigan area knows him. And then outside, you will always find me with sunglasses and in my garden, outside near water. That's like my favorite thing to do. Or at the University of Michigan. I am a true blue, go blue alumna, and I love to talk about U of M. That could be a whole nother topic. But today we're talking about a little bit of substance. There are different ways to communicate and different types of communications and many ways to communicate. And the reality is each of these things could be a semester class at a university. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to move it down into about 20 minutes. My goal is to give you things that are out of the box. We all know about sending a proper cover letter or doing the right leads and the right follow-up and the right connections, finding out the timelines, making sure you're personalizing things. I'm not talking about any of that today. So what I want to talk about is the things that are not so common that should be a no-brainer, but we often lose while we're trying to do the official things. So I wanted to start by talking about my degree is in communications. And the first thing I learned in school was the medium is the message by Marshall McLuhan. He coined that in one of his books in 1965. It still resonates and you still hear it. Well, today Zoom or StreamYard, these are different rules in terms of how we're presenting, but the rules still apply. So I want to talk about, there was a landmark study. Oh, I have to slow down probably too, but there was a landmark study from UCLA showed that your gestures have a 55% impact on your audience and or who you're presenting to, and the tone of your voice. So you should go up and down and soft and slow, make up 30%. All right, so that only leaves 7% left for your actual words that you're talking about. So I have a bit of a different take on this. I agree that that's the percentage, but I also agree that this only applies when your words hit the mark. So if you're so busy figuring out your hand gestures and figuring out where you're going to move and being in a weekend backdrop, not a backdrop that I would use for an interview, you can only be successful if your words are backing you up. So I think that's really important, especially in this Zoom world. So the first thing I want to kind of talk about is finding a connection. We all know that this is really important, but lots of times you can find a connection that is so out of the box, and you have to be looking for these things. So I was once at an interview, and I didn't think it was going so well. There was a number of reasons that I won't go into. I don't think it was my fault. I think they probably had an internal candidate, but they had to interview. But I saw that one of the interviewers had a Team Alex water bottle in front of him. And those in the Metro Detroit area may know that Team Alex is a group of bike riders who ride in memory of a young girl named Alex Graham who passed away when she was 16 from cancer. And so this is like one of the largest groups in the country, and they ride in her memory, and they primarily ride for Make-A-Wish. So that's a little backstory there. But I said to him, "Oh, you're a Team Alex? Are you a rider?" And it changed the dynamic of the conversation. I could tell him who my friends were. I didn't know Alex, sadly, but I'm friends with her parents. And so I could talk about, I took the interview from kind of that clenched fist to an open conversation. I thought, and since I'm always updating things, just this morning, Jerry Jones, hello. I don't know you, but you sent me a LinkedIn connection this morning. And I thought what was really nice about it was it says, "I know it's taking you away from knitting and gardening and on a weekend. You're welcome. It is an awesome job." You're welcome. And I thought that's really cool. He didn't look at my headline on LinkedIn. The fact that I knit and garden is pretty low in my about me paragraph. He found it, he made a personal connection and reached out. So really, it is truly all about finding that unique spot that you can change an interview to a personal conversation and a personal connection. Because I am going to forever remember that Jerry did that. And I hope that the interviewer will always remember that even though I didn't get that job, and you know what, it's just fine, that I made a connection over Team Alex. So I thought I would kind of jump off. Written communications are really the easiest because you have time to wait, right? You have time to figure it out, put it away. Often when I'm sending an email, I do not put a subject line in, a to line in until I am ready to send. And if it's really important, what I do is write the email in a Word doc. There's no chance of sending it early. I send it in a Word, I prep it in a Word doc, copy it over, make sure the formatting is correct before I send it. Oftentimes I'll write emails late at night, but I never send them because I'm going to read them again in the morning with fresh eyes. My mom sewed and she never cut out a pattern at night. She laid out a pattern at night. And I would say to her in the morning, why didn't you finish cutting it out? You were still up. And she said, no, I needed to put it down, think on it, and then move forward. So that's really my advice to everyone today. So let me tell you a few things that make me crazy. The first is using negative talk. I don't believe in it. When I was director of an organization, I spent the first 3 days changing the website from everything the organization couldn't do. It was littered, and the president said, what have you been doing your first days? And I said, yeah, we're going to change this. We are going to be so positive. So we can take, let's not do something, or, oh, I saw you did that, but it didn't work, to what if we considered? I'm a firm believer if you do have a criticism in general, it best be followed by a suggestion. The second thing is using too many words. That's something that's really important. So a lot of even voicemails say, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I cringe every time because I think to myself, that means when I am important enough to you, you will call me back because you've already laid it out. So I would say, instead of using as soon as I can, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words, you can put in the word shortly. I'll get back to you shortly. And in writing, condensing those words and really getting to the point and getting to that cohesive message is really important. The last one also should be a no-brainer. Ending a sentence with a preposition. Where should we hold the meeting at? Well, no, let's go back to, I don't know, 4th grade, 7th grade English, and really put our sentences together and do them the right way. And then incomplete proofreading. So you don't get me started. I'm hoping people will notice that there is no apostrophe on don't. The reality is, if I was writing, it would say do not. It would not use a contraction. But there are so many little mistakes, but they become glaring mistakes, which is not fair because it's not a full representation of you, but it's the only thing that the hiring manager or the computer sees. So I recommend that you read backwards, that it makes your brain look at everything individually. Tip 2, like I said before, wait before you press that send button. I don't care if you can call something back, it never works. The third thing is, if you make a mistake, stop and own it. So I was once in an interview and I think it was purposely to trip me up, because they asked me about a product and how I would respond if someone had a question about it that was a negative question. And I kind of, made up my answer and whatever. And then we moved on to another question. And then I said, wait a minute, can we go back? That's not our product. You kind of tripped me up there. But if I were in this situation in a meeting, I would also go back and own it, and I would correct it. It says to people, you're not infallible, and that's okay. You know, you've got to be able to show your personality. And the last thing, though I'm not doing it in this presentation, is leaving room for silence. You need to leave room for people to think. If you talk nonstop, like I'm doing now, people just don't have time to speak. My next thing that makes me the craziest is if you remember, if you're of the age that on Saturday morning you watch Schoolhouse Rock, my favorite was always Conjunction Junction. I guess I was always about words. I now watch, especially the weather, but the news media, and they're all using but as a word to put two things that are alike together. But Conjunction Junction, and go and watch it on after 2 o'clock, go and watch it on YouTube, and puts like things together, but puts different things together. So make sure that you're using the right conjunction, or is two different options. So you wouldn't say, for example, it's cloudy and stormy and it's going to be horrible this afternoon. That's the same thing. Or you would say, and it's going to be horrible. You wouldn't say it's cloudy and stormy, but it's going to be worse this afternoon. No, those are the same things. It's just getting worse. So you need to people are singing the songs. They're my favorite. So that's just my use the right words. If you have to practice, practice. Okay, this, which will surprise you, does not make me crazy. Do you know that filler words are actually called disfluencies? The ums, the okays, the you knows. There's a reason our brain does that. Now, we shouldn't overuse them, and we should practice really hard not to. But these are words that let our brain reset and come back so that we can give a correct answer. So there's nothing wrong with letting our brain reset so that we do a better job when we're speaking. You pause, you reflect, and then you answer with a normal cadence. It also stops you from rambling, which I'm doing right now, so I'm going to move on. So one of the last things I want to talk about is consistency is key. So we think about communicating in the job search space as the interview we're having or the paperwork we're sending. But in today's world, that's not true. In today's world, you're going to be searched. One of the other speakers also talked about this, that don't put anything up there that you wouldn't want someone to see, that anyone can't see. I would go a step further and put up a consistent message. So this is the headers of my different profiles, LinkedIn, Facebook. They all have the same look to them. So no matter where you are, you see the same thing. So this is kind of my wrap up. Look, it's 10:02. This is when I'm supposed to be wrapping up. How you communicate using concise language, using the same language, playing to your strengths and being unique, being yourself is really important. Because if you're not yourself in an interview and you get a job, you're either going to show up as a totally different person, or you're going to have to follow that fake persona for a really long time. So lastly, respect your interviewer and their time. And so it is 11:49 if you're watching this live, which was what I was told to present.
I got to get something. Hold on. You just reminded me. Oh, here it is. I got my bell.
We're really ready. So this is how
you're going to time out, but you perfectly hit the timing of it.
I'm good. Okay, I'm stopping sharing so we can come back and talk to each other.
That was awesome, Pam. You did such a great job of sharing information, and I know it's hard really to get in, a lot of information in a tight time frame. I love so many of your points on not using filler words, adding white space. I'm trying to do all of these things right now. It's hard to do it, but so many practice. And I did see someone had a suggestion. I'm going to pull this up on screen. It was about using Word. This was from John Keller. Did you know this, Pam? If you're using Word, you can have Word read your document out loud, and then sometimes you can highlight problems in your grammar. Were you aware of that?
You know, I absolutely was not. Were you?
I wasn't, and it doesn't surprise me, because even on your phone, you know, now you can like type in something and then you can say it'll read it back to you.
Right.
It doesn't surprise me that there's things out there. And I want to encourage you guys. We're moving into Q&A right now, and Pam was giving us great conversation. You know, different pointers. I actually see I have the wrong background. Let me remove that real quick on here. But we were having some great conversation about communication tips for job seekers today. So if you guys have questions, feel free to ask them. And then my little tip is, if you're watching and you're like, I don't want to ask a question because I don't want it to like self-identify, you can say, Brenda, my friend wanted to know about, and then you can ask your question for your friend, and you don't have to self-identify, right, Pam?
I often use that on Facebook, you know, asking for 100 million friends.
Right. Because realistically, somebody else probably has the same question. And I see a few people saying, it took me years not to use filler words. Pam, any suggestions for people if they struggle with the even I do the and, you know, what recommendations do you have for those folks?
Sadly, it's a really easy word: practice.
Yeah. Practice
in front of the mirror. Now it's even easier, because now we can just now we can just open anything and record ourselves and play it back. That didn't used to happen. It used to be I would actually stand in front of the mirror and give a presentation. And, and I worked with a lot of people over the years who had give presentations at annual dinners.
Mm-hmm.
And they would say to me, "Oh, it's no problem. It's only." They'd send me their version of the script, and I'd say, "Okay, I'm going to call you, and I want you to read it to me." And they thought I was crazy. So let's say they had 7 minutes to present. I would actually, on the copy I had, mark where 7 minutes was. And then I would say to them at the end of the 20-minute speech, "How long do you think you spoke?" And usually they would say, "Well, I think I went over. I probably spoke 10 minutes. Mm. So we had to have a conversation about, let's go back and make this succinct and make it really what you want to say, because there are superfluous words in here and you're kind of rambling to the side. So let's get you in, get you off stage, so the next person isn't really annoyed with you. And I don't care how much money you gave, that's the answer."
And I see a lot of people are having other suggestions for spell checking, Grammarly, and programs like that. I have to give a huge shout out to Toastmasters. And our focus today here, Pam, is really on, this is a LinkedIn Live-a-thon for job seekers. So those people who are in career transition, maybe working but looking. And when we think about public speaking as a part of that, what we're really referring to, I think, is the interview, right? And the questions that are coming up. And someone says, "So Pam, tell me about yourself." You don't want to start with, "Well, I was born in a small town and I was young before. My dad had a tractor. My mom liked to bake pies. And my favorite color is orange." I mean, you want to be succinct with what you're doing, right? And have you heard of Toastmasters, Pam? Are you familiar with that program?
I absolutely have heard of Toastmasters. I think they do a great job. I have not I've not gone through the classes in Toastmasters, because instead my parents and I spent about $50,000 on a university degree in communications, where my classes taught me how to stand up and speak in public.
There you go. And what I love, when you're in a class and you're graded and there's specific assignments and there's deadlines and timelines you're moving against, you will get better from the beginning of class to the end of class. What I liked about Toastmasters is, as a membership organization, and you go at your own pace, you give speeches, people give you feedback. There's actually a role in the club called the counter, like AH or UH counter. And at the end of the meeting, they get up and they say, Brenda, you said 15 times, but 20 times. I mean, it makes you become more aware of it. But
Right.
it's a longer term. If you think about, if you want to get really good at swimming, you take swimming lessons, and if you take just one course, you're better at the end. But if you continually do swimming over the years, you can become a competitive swimmer, right? And that's how you get really good at that.
Okay, so I took a lot of swimming lessons in my youth. I was a junior lifeguard, whatever. I was never going to be a competitive swimmer, but that's okay. Everybody doesn't need to be a competitive swimmer. We just all need to not drown.
There you go. There you go. And that's a good analogy. So we're getting towards the noon hour. What I want to do is I want to start bringing in our next speaker, who is Diane Darling. I just want to bring her up on screen, just do a quick audio and video check. And I'm vamping a little bit because I can see Diane in the green room behind it. And I didn't want to pop her up on screen where she's like looking down. And hey, Diane, how are you doing?
Knitting.
Fluffing your hair and knitting. Is that what you've been doing all morning?
I sometimes do it when I'm on Zooms or in the background. It gives me something to do with my hands. It keeps me from like surfing on the web.
There you go. We're getting a little bit of a freezing. I'm not sure if that's on my screen or Diane's, but we're going to keep going here. It may just be a little internet
doing something different.
Yeah. So Diane, I'm going to move you back to the green room just for a second. And then I'm just going to finish up our conversation here with Pam. What do you got there, Pam?
You know, I am shocked. I am shocked. I say shocked. Me and Casablanca, I am shocked that I'm the first one to hold up your phenomenal book, Social Media Pie. So in as we wind down, I just want to thank you, Brenda, for convening this group. You've been amazing through this whole thing, and you're just one of the most giving people I know. Okay, don't blush. You're one of the most giving people I know, and I'm always suggesting people follow you, and it's been my pleasure to get to know you. And we are going to have coffee or lunch when we get through this whole thing.
We definitely will. And I want to just do one final question, and then we'll wrap up here. And we're talking about communication for job seekers. Wendy is asking for advice on how do you address a panel interview when you can't look at them directly. Thoughts there, Pam?
Well, I would just say, always be moving your eyes around. The last thing you want to look like is a robot. So if you know there's 3 people, and assume you can kind of see people. So I just look at them. I mean, just keep kind of moving around and seeing what's out there. Don't, be a one of these, but connect with the audience, connect with your group.
And I would add on to that, this is the technique. It's it feels weird. Look at the camera. So right now I'm looking at the camera. I'm going to tap the camera. I'm looking at the camera, and what's happening? I'm looking at you, right? When I'm doing this, as opposed to when I look down at the screen, I'm looking right now at Pam, but it doesn't look like that. It looks like I'm checking my email or doing something. So as much as possible, when you're in an interview, look at the camera. I know it feels unnatural because you want to look and see their hand gestures, their facial expressions, but you're going to make such a better impression. And the technique I like to use is when they're talking, look at the screen. When you respond, look at the camera. So it's hard to control that, Pam, isn't it? Because we're looking at like a robotic arm.
The whole thing is hard. And the fact that we're going to make it through with all these great tips is something we can all be so proud of. I would also add to that, I don't know where your computer is. Mine is on top of 2 books, a box, and the lid from a plastic container. But it made the right height for me. And I played around with it for quite a while. So I don't need to look down or look up. Just my natural, the camera eye is hitting me right where it needs to hit.
Perfect. Well, Pam, I'm pulling up your LinkedIn URL as we wrap here today. Pamela Lippitt is her URL on LinkedIn there. Are you open to accepting invitations from people that are watching the show here today?
Well, absolutely. Just even in advance of today, my network has been blowing up, and I'm excited. Just, say you saw me. If you have questions later, ask me too.
All right, awesome. And Pam, I'm assuming you're probably going to go into the LinkedIn stream now too, and you'll watch for comments and any additional questions that might come in there. All right, thank you so much. And the slide deck, in case anyone wants to get a copy of that, is that something you'd be willing to share with our attendees today?
I will. I'm also have a checklist that I can share with people. And here's my big offer. I will choose, if you're doing an interview on Zoom and you want to do a practice, I'm going to pick 10 people. And I will have a 15-minute conversation with them so we can practice.
Great. Well,
so tell me why.
Tell you. Okay, good. And I'll include in the webpage right now, if you guys go to mellermarketing.com/FEB2021, that's February 20th of 21, for today's event, if you join my email subscription list, I'll send you the playback link of Pam's talk, along with a copy of her slide deck and the information about that offer that she had with us today. Thank you so much, Pam. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and thank you for your time.
You too. See you soon.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. And we're going to move Pam off of screen here now. And we had a little bit of a hiccup. Diane, I think you may be frozen. So Diane, if you could leave the StreamYard and then come back in again. If you guys watch me on LinkedIn Live, you know I never make mistakes, nor do my guests. We have learning experiences. And we have just encountered a little audio video hiccup that has happened. And I see a few people commented. I think someone said they went out onto YouTube and it seemed to have cleared up the issue. Hey, it looks like Diane's crisp and moving along. Diane, how are you doing?
I am great. How are you?
Good. I don't think it was you. I think it was StreamYard. It was because you've been on since the morning and we've been communicating in chat. And all of a sudden I pulled you up on screen and Diane froze and it was crazy. Hey, you got a book with you too. Yay. How are you doing today?
I am doing fine. I'm dog sitting, and one of the things I had to pack was my book so I could do show and tell. It is such a pleasure and an honor to be a virtual friend of Brenda's, and I can't wait till the day I fly to Michigan and meet all the other, Go Blue fans. And I've taught at the Ross School of Business, and I've got a neurotic dog in the yard I threw in the snow and said, go away.
You're in Boston, right?
I am in Boston at the moment. I'm in a suburb, and we got about 8 to 9 inches of snow yesterday. And it's beautiful. It's fluffy. If people are skiers, they must be super happy. I decided to pull out some yarn and do some knitting while I was hanging out here and watching. It keeps me from getting distracted. And maybe I'll surf here. I'm like, no, watch and knit.
It's hard to, right? To not be distracted and to flutter around, right?
It is.
So we're here today, and Diane, when I asked you to come on, I said, what do you want to talk about? And I think we talked back and forth, and you said, how about mindset during job search? And I think there was even someone who had asked the question in one of the earlier conversations about mindset. Do you have the right mindset to be an entrepreneur? So Diane and I, we met online virtually, and I put together this list. It's called the LinkedIn Rockstars, the Meller Marketing LinkedIn Rockstars. And I basically have found people who across LinkedIn are just really rocking on LinkedIn. And some of these people are LinkedIn trainers and coaches, and Diane, does some LinkedIn work as well. I don't look at Diane as a competitor. I look at her as co-opetition. We support each other, and we help each other, and we provide resources back and forth. And Diane actually has a group. It's your Tuesday Virtual Cafe. Am I calling it? Is that the right name?
Yep, the Tuesday Virtual Cafe. You can go to dianedarling.com if you want to sign up for that. And I'm doing it right now on the first Tuesday of the month, although I maybe start doing it on Clubhouse, learning a little bit on Clubhouse.
All right. Well, good to know. So, and I joined your event, which was about mindset. That was a Zoom event? I don't think it was a Clubhouse event, but it was a similar topic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's start us off, if you could, Diane, by take a minute or two, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll jump into the conversation. And remind me too, are you doing slides or are we just doing a talk here today?
I have a few slides.
If you could click on share in the bottom of your screen to start to enable that, and then I will have to enable the sharing after you do that. Okay. So I'll give you just a moment to pull that up. But why don't you start by introducing yourself?
Sure. So what I do is pre-COVID, I was a speaker at conferences and events, and would go all around the world, literally, doing presentations and things along those lines about typically communication skills, although really focused on networking, and how you build relationships. And part of it goes back to, I moved overseas when I was 6 years old. I crossed the Pacific on a freighter for 3.5 weeks. I learned how to swim. Someone said they threw you overboard. I'm like, no, there was a pool on the ship. But I went to so many new schools. And what this has taught me is it's really hard to fit in. And I feel like every day I'm trying to fit into something new. I'm trying to fit into LinkedIn. I'm trying to fit into Clubhouse now. I'm trying to fit in all kinds of different places. So I really like teaching people how to connect, build relationships. In many cases, when you're a newbie, a few weeks ago, I did a program called Super Bowl 101 because a lot of people do not understand football. My dad was a college player at a very small school, played center. I learned all kinds of stuff by being, a daughter in that situation. The secret I found was a lot of people who do not understand football are American men who feel left out and intimidated. So I just decided to do a lot of programs teaching people how to feel more comfortable with skills. And your previous speaker, I think it was Pam, talked about public speaking. And I put in the chat, give a talk to your dog or cat, take acting classes. A lot of it is learning to get more comfortable with some of these things that may not necessarily so I do workshops and along those lines. In COVID times, I'm now doing more and more online classes. So I just finished one on a Job Hunters Lab, and I gave a talk on mindset, and it was well received. So I was happy to share that.
And I just remembered too, you had my book. I know you have several books, but I want to hold one up in particular and pull a little bit large screen so people can see it. She said it, and Diane and I are both advocates of women. And you can see here, this is a collection of quotes from remarkable women. Getting a little bit of an echo. Are you hearing that, Diane?
No, you're okay with me.
Okay. I heard it on mine for a second. But one of the things I've noticed, and Diane commented on in her book, is when people are doing inspirational and leadership quotes, don't always quote men. 50% of the world is women. And if you're struggling with finding quotes from remarkable women, this is an excellent book with different quotes on that. So just a little shout out to you and to your book as well. So let's get started here. I'm going to pull up your slides up on screen, and then I'll actually turn the control over to you, Diane. I'm going to pull myself off of video a little bit here, and then I'll come back in at about 12:20 and help with our conversation and our Q&A.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to talk about what is mindset and why it matters and how incredibly important it is for all of you to be doing this. And I'm going to need to figure, okay, here we go. All right. So I got an RFP request for proposal for a talk about mindset. And this was in the middle of January. The RFP came over on a Wednesday, and I'm on a list of people looking for speakers. And one was a topic about mindset. And they said, we're behind in our sales. And we were behind last year because of COVID. We're even more behind this year. And we're trying to figure out how we can do that. And I thought, I've written a lot about it, and I've read a lot about mindset. I'll raise my hand. So part of what I'm going to share with you as job hunters is raise your hand. You may have skills and you may have more knowledge. Earlier, you heard my pal Rob here from Boston talk about branding. In some cases, you may be more of an expert if you know more than the other people. So don't overthink it. So I answered this. On Friday, they said yes. Monday was Martin Luther King Day. Tuesday, I turned in the slides, and Wednesday was Inauguration Day, and it was showtime, and I gave my presentation at 3:00 the afternoon of the inauguration. So it was in less than a week. I got the request. I honored my commitment. I wrote a brand new speech because I had had lots of research, but I pulled it together because one, I wanted the job and I wanted to challenge my mindset of thinking, oh, you can't do this. So we're going to talk about words. There's been a lot of great conversation. I think you're meeting a lot of word nerds here today. And one is the actual definition of mindset. And it's a mental attitude or inclination. But the definition also talks about fixed mindset. And I want to challenge that. So you see this little tugboat to the left, and I want you to think about this is a thought that turns into a mindset, and the thought comes up, gee, I can't do that job. I've never been a speaker about mindset before. And then it goes into, no, let me challenge that because that's going to be my mindset. New thought, I can put the information, my curiosity together and put together a talk and help these people succeed. So and a part of this is challenging your imposter syndrome. And we can talk about that too, if you want to, in the Q&A. So to the left, you have a growth mindset. The growth mindset is a challenge is going to help me grow. Failure is an opportunity to learn. I like to try new things. Feedback is constructive. The fixed mindset is, I can't do this because I haven't done it before. I don't know how to do this. Think about public speaking. I've never given a, TED talk before, so I'm not going to even try. A growth mindset is going to say, I haven't given one, but I am going to try. So the TLDR version of this is a fixed mindset means this is what happens when you're born. You're stuck with this. A growth mindset says you're learning, growing all the time. So you want to think about what mindset do you have? And the reality is you're not going to live in one or the other. You're going to go back and forth and back and forth. A fixed mindset is going to say, well, if I fail, that means I'm no good. Well, actually, I'm doing some work right now, and there's a lot of parts of this that are involved with numbers. I'm quite seriously dyslexic. So I said, I can do this. It's going to take a lot longer if I take on this assignment. How about growth mindset? I do something else that I am better at than numbers. It doesn't mean I'm no good at that, but it may mean it's not my top expertise. And so I have said, I see an opportunity here. Again, my growth mindset, I saw an opportunity in this department that I'm in right now that said we needed training. I can do training and I can do it pretty well. So you want to go accept the fact that you're going to be in both of these and how you can leverage that. So let's take a look at this, and I'm happy to share the slides with this, and I'm going to encourage everybody to sign up for Brenda's list because you're going to get boatloads of information, including these slides. All right, so the fixed mindset from a skills perspective, it can't change. From challenges, everything feels overwhelming. I mentioned earlier, I'm dog sitting right now, and I have a dog that is not particularly obedient. They told me he knew to sit and stay. He does not. So this is an opportunity for change. This is calling for some perseverance, which meant 3 hours of the night trying to get the dog in the yard to sit down. And sometimes you're also learning about feedback. At first, I was feeling defensive when the owner said, well, we've never had a problem. And I wanted to say, well, the growth mindset says, well, that's great. You've never had a problem, but you've also left your dog with other people for 3 months because you bought a COVID dog. So part of it is looking at these setbacks and saying, is this my fault? Or is this something I will probably not take care of this dog in the future? So part of it is understanding where you're going to go with some of the things that you learn along the way. This is a slide I'm going to invite you to revisit. You're going to get it, so don't feel like you need to write everything down. But think about the challenge you can put in these statements. So let's say number 3, I give up. 3, I'll use some of the strategies we've learned. 6, this is what I felt. I can't do math. 6, I'm going to train my brain to do math. Or what I'm going to say is that there's something else I can do with my skills. The last one that's kind of interesting is that plan A didn't work. There's 5 more letters in the alphabet. So thinking about challenging yourself, and think about a thought. You're in traffic, the car comes next to you. Hey, that's a nice thought. That's a nice little red car, kind of a cool little thing. And then the thought goes away. Do you chase the thought around and say, I have to stay with this thought? Or do you let that thought go and keep your mind open for the next thing? As I mentioned earlier, I'm a football fan, and I just have to champion this person for her growth mindset. She was the first woman referee in Super Bowl, not in a Pee-wee game, in Super Bowl. And so she said, I have a growth mindset. I know I can crack this code. She believed in herself. And she laughed when they had said, put your hair in a ponytail so people don't realize it's a girl and don't wear makeup. And she's from Mississippi. And she goes, no, you don't understand. Makeup is a blessing for a lot of us. So she had a sense of humor, but she also had a sense of persistence and perseverance. This is another situation where I got a phone call and said, did I want to teach football at the British consulate? I gave this talk. I took the raw footage. I popped it up on a website. And that weekend, 1,000 people bought my online course about Football 101 several years ago. It wasn't perfect footage. It had cameras in the background. It had mistakes. It had audio issues. I did not take the time to make it all polished and pretty. I just popped it up because I thought this information is helpful for people who obviously pre-COVID were going to go to a Super Bowl party. But instead, I wanted to say, I want to give as much as I can, even if it is not perfect. I had the pleasure several years ago of meeting Dr. Ruth, and I'm going to invite you as an assignment to take a look at this documentary on Hulu. This is somebody who could have a very fixed mindset. She lost her entire family in the Holocaust. And her response to this is the most amazing growth mindset to say, because I lived, she said to me, because I lived, I have to do the max with my gifts. And so here's a picture of the two of us having coffee in New York multiple years ago. My double chin is awful, but I will share with you, I am 5'3.5". So this is a remarkable person that I encourage you to take a chance to look at her documentary. So now I'm going to give you some action steps and then we'll go take some Q&A. Be aware of your thoughts. Just be aware of them. Don't challenge them. I have one thought here that says, oh, I'm talking too quickly. Another one says you're going to be running out of time. At home, I have a clock right there. I don't know where the clock is in this house, so I'm just going to hope I'm on time. Watch the Dr. Ruth documentary. And I'm also going to really encourage you to find an accountability partner. I have several accountability groups that I use. I have got one at 6:30 in the morning, and I have another one where we're on video throughout the day, and we put in the video. We'll stay there for hours. I'm going to go take a break. I'm going to go walk the dog. I'm going to work on a PowerPoint. I'm going to make 3 sales calls. So have accountability partners who really challenge you to grow and stretch. Review the 10 growth mindset statements. And here's the other thing. Connect with 3 people from your past. A COVID project I'm doing is going through boxes of business cards. Many of the people are on LinkedIn and many of the people are in my database. But when was the last time I talked to them? If I haven't talked to them in the last 6 months to a year, it's become a stale contact. I want to go back and say hi. I found a stack of business cards when I taught at the MBA program at Boston University in 2008. 2008. I wrote all of the students and said, Professor Darling is here, just checking in on seeing how you're doing. Some of them were doing amazing things, and almost all of them were so grateful to hear from me because they felt intimidated to go reach out to their professor and say, it's been a long time, just wanted to say hi. You can pick up the baton and do that. So I will have a special offer for all of you. It's going to be a discount for my next Job Hunters Lab starting in March. It's exclusive for Brenda's list. So this offer will be just for her. So I'm going to encourage you to do that. If you'd like to connect with me, you can get my freebie. So grab your phone right now and hold it up to the QR code. It will open up a form and you can fill in the form. And what will come back to you is a chart called How to Work a Room. Now, I know we are not working in rooms in person right now, but you will have this document and it will give you some tips on how to work virtual rooms, which I will be doing another diagram for that soon. But you will have this as a placeholder. And you can also follow me on LinkedIn. First of all, follow me. And then second of all, if you do want to invite me on LinkedIn, and Brenda and I are both passionate about this, include a custom invitation. A custom invitation. Mention Brenda's event and follow me on Clubhouse and Twitter. And that is it. So I will stop my sharing. And Brenda, you and I can come back and chat. And I hope I'm on my good time here. And I haven't done a lot of StreamYards or LinkedIn Live. So it's always a little bit exciting and nerve-wracking when I'm doing it.
You were amazing. That was great timing, Diane, and really good information. I didn't know that you met Ruth Westheimer. That's really intriguing. And I love the photo that you have. And you're 5'3", I'm 5'4", so we're about, same height. So you don't realize, it's all, and we were talking earlier about where would you deem yourself an expert? And related to that, you're tall next to her. I'm Diane Iwoody tall. And I don't consider myself short either, but it's all in perspective, and what an amazing photo op for you to have.
Well, I was at a conference and I put my bag over my shoulder. You got your laptop and all that sort of stuff. I popped it over my shoulder and I hit somebody, and I turned around and I said, "I'm so sorry I hit you. I had hit Dr. Ruth."
Oh, no.
I had hit Dr. Ruth. And so I went, "Oh my gracious, I am so sorry. I didn't mean to hit you." She goes, "Of course you did not mean to hit me." And I said, "Could I ever interview you on your career path?" She says, "Yes, here's my number, 212." And she flew through her number. And this is also a tip. I always have a piece of paper and a pencil in my pocket, because I could pull that out right now, write the phone number. If I had to open up an app and all that sort of stuff, she would have been long gone.
Right. That's great. Wow. What an amazing story. You have so many really interesting backstories, Diane. The longer I know you, I hear more of these, and just such a fascinating person. Now, you mentioned Clubhouse, and I know we're here talking about mindset for job seekers, but I've had a couple quick people ask questions about Clubhouse. Jerry, is saying, is it iPhone based? So could you give us a quick, what is Clubhouse? And then you mentioned you're on Clubhouse. What is your handle if people want to look you up and follow you?
Yeah, my Clubhouse handle is @DianeDarling. And I just wrote an article for Medium. It's going to get published next week. Brenda, I'll share that with you so you can share that with your followers as well. So a quick Clubhouse 101. It is iPhone based. At the moment, it is invitation only, but go ahead and download the app, because what happens is that if I see that, Brenda, you've had an invitation and it's outstanding, and you and I have a connection, I can hit invite you and you will get up in the queue. It's kind of a networking game, to tell you the truth. What is so amazing for Clubhouse, and I think the reason why it has 2 million active users a week. People are using I think it's 11 hours a week. People are on Clubhouse. The reason why is it has kind of displaced the radio in your car. So when, I'm in the car, I have all kinds of, I can just sit down and think, which of the Clubhouse things that are happening now can be interesting. I can go ahead and do that and just jump on it. It's kind of an audio interactive podcast. So I also think what people like about it is we're zoomed out right now. And so, I do it first thing in the morning when it's not very pretty. And I do it sometimes at night when I'm, chasing a dog, or I'm going for a walk, or I'm driving from one place to the other. It has this leave quietly, so you can kind of sneak out and leave. Brenda, you and I hosted 1 or 2 together. So it's getting its learning curves. It's only a year old, but it is really quite an interesting platform, I think, that's going to be compelling. And I think because after so much video time, people are just appreciating the opportunity to listen. It's incredibly diverse. Yeah. You can learn a language. You can, talk about marketing. You can talk about LinkedIn, which is a hot topic. But the diversity is exceptional. It really is intriguing. And, the reality is, when we earlier in your today, there were several people who commented about how wonderful it was to see some men of color. Yeah. And on Clubhouse, you can look at someone's profile, but that's not really the first thing you do. What do they look like? When you're on video, that's what happens.
Very true. And it is a really great app. And we're here talking about this LinkedIn Live-a-thon for job seekers. And Diane's talk is focused around mindset. And I think Clubhouse can help you to get into the right mindset, because you can find different topics and speakers and folks to listen from and learn from. I want to shift us to a question. Joey may or may not be using my technique, which is, if you don't want to ask a question, don't say I have a stupid question, bud, or I have a silly question. Just ask, and you could say, I have a friend, and I don't know if this is Joey's question or if it's a question, because he said, I have a friend who's interested in knowing how she can stop the insistent, and that's a great technique. Use the gender of a different person, because we don't know if it's Joey or if he's really asking. Diane, if you're struggling with mindset, maybe it's the imposter syndrome or whatever is in your head, what advice can you give to Joey to give to his friend?
So I'm sorry, I think I missed the question.
So the question is right on screen in the comment right now. Interested in knowing how they can stop the insistent fixed mindset from taking root in their mind. So they're kind of feeling stuck, or maybe, something
Start
happening.
Small. Yeah. Start small. So a mindset that I get challenged every morning, I don't want to get up. I want 10 more minutes. So the mindset I'm doing right now, and for my Job Hunters Lab, we did a whole segment on negotiation. And I said, negotiate yourself in the morning, how many snooze buttons you're going to hit. So decide tonight, is it going to be 1? Is it going to be 2? Is it going to be 3? So negotiate. So the mindset is start small. So instead of saying, I'm going to lose 20 pounds by the weekend, say, I'm going to go on a 20-minute walk once this weekend. So you want to start small and start in something where you can succeed.
Awesome.
And
Great.
then you can build on that. And then you can build on that. So I took a class, oddly enough, in procrastination. People said, are you going to go? Are you going to go? And what I learned was the power of 20 minutes. TED Talks are between 18 and 20 minutes. For my first book called The Networking Survival Guide, I interviewed the founder of TED. And I met him through some networking, and he said 20 minutes was a perfect amount of time to sit and stay focused, sit and listen. And because he really felt like if it goes much longer than that, you tend to get distracted. And he started TED Talks before really. I remember at one of his TED Talks, they were actually giving out Palm Pilots and for the speakers. That tells you how long ago those TED Talks were.
Wow.
But part of it is, it's really interesting to think about this small amount of time, this digestible amount of time. So, I think, I don't know if I'm the only one, but I think with COVID, we're dealing with clutter. We're in our houses more often. My living room is now a living room, a gym, an office, and an exercise studio, a dining room. I mean, I live in small space to begin with, and now it's even more, cluttered and that sort of stuff. So I do 20 minutes. And I turn on, my music, and Tom Jones is my go-to rock it out. And, she's a lady, and I'll be rocking, to that. And, it makes me sort of want to clean, but, it's the declutter and just set that sort of stuff up. Get yourself in a mindset for the morning. Yeah. So I would say to him, small.
Start small. I like it. And I remember one tip you taught me early on, Diane. I was feeling stuck. I was, I think when we first met and started talking, I was just getting my home office set up at my new house. And you said, do it in time blocks, like do 30 minutes of cleaning and then 10-minute break, 30 minutes of cleaning. And I was like, that worked. It got me through things. I want to invite our next speaker who's in the green room. I just want to bring him up real quick. Hey, Alex, how are you doing today?
Listen, I'm great, except I hear 2 conversations in my ear. Tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Can you unplug your earphones and speak without? And then I'm going to put you back in the green room for a second as I wrap up with Diane here, and then we'll do another audio test as we bring Alex in. So we'll just finish this up, Diane. And I see Fran had asked a question. Will you still be available on LinkedIn for the first Tuesday of the month? I think she's referring to your virtual cafe event. Is that on Zoom or is it on LinkedIn? Where can people find that?
Well, you can find it on LinkedIn, but the best thing to do is to go to dianedarling.com, DianeDarling.com, and there'll be one button there that says the Tuesday Virtual Cafe. But Brenda, I'm seeing a Linda somewhere in there. But what we can do is we can be sure that everybody gets that link when you send out your follow-up as well.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much, Diane. And as we kind of wrap here today, I'm putting your LinkedIn URL up on screen. Are you open to invitations to connect if people are watching the show and they want to connect with you?
Absolutely. So you can invite me, but I would really encourage you to put something. I probably have, I don't know, I usually have 200 to 300 invitations sitting in there at the same time. And what I do is I scan the ones that have a comment. I scan the ones that have, that are customized. That's the first place I look. I'll go through those first. And then if people say something magical about Brenda, ideally you get you Brenda's book, mention something about today, you'll get first in the queue. And then I'll go through the rest of the people who tell me they're going to make me millions and I have no idea who they are.
The Bitcoin people. And Diane, do you have the follow button as the default or the connect?
I do.
Okay. So when
I just crossed 15,000, Brenda.
Yeah, there you go. And when you go to Diane's profile, if you want to connect with her, you certainly can follow. And if you follow her, you'll see her updates. But if you want to connect, you got to go to the more button, which is like 2 buttons over on the top. When you click on more, one of the options should be either connect or personalized invite. And then you want to add a note when you invite Diane to connect and just say, hi, Diane, I saw you on LinkedIn Live today. Loved your tips about mindset. I'm going to buy your book. I'm going to sign up for your virtual cafe, whatever. Let's connect on LinkedIn. So give her a little bit about where you saw her in your invitation to connect. So Diane, thank you so much. Any final comments you want to offer about mindset? Anything else you're working on that you want to tell us about right now as we're wrapping up here today?
Well, I'm working on some online courses. And so I would encourage people to, share what would you like to learn? Let me know what are some top burning topics. I'm going to be doing one on mindset, possibly one on negotiation. Brenda's your guru for LinkedIn. So that's where I would send you there. But what are some other topics? And for people who are nervous about public speaking, I would definitely encourage you to do audio first. Do it audio first, because it makes it so much easier to do that. And, I was messaging Rob early in the session, don't speak so quickly. Think about your words going to the computer and then coming back. You want to cherish your words. They're thoughtful, important things. So be sure you take care of that.
Awesome. Did you notice too, Diane, on LinkedIn, StreamYard is now putting the captions as we're speaking today. And that's a newer feature of StreamYard. And I really appreciate it, because there may be folks who are either watching it with the sound turned off or maybe hearing impaired, and that's allowing them to participate. So kudos to the folks at StreamYard for that new technology.
Well, it's also multilingual. And so part of it is people who English is not your first language, they really appreciate reading all of those things, and I remember hearing people who are non-native English speakers, and this will date me, that they would learn English by watching Peter Jennings, because he was Canadian and he spoke slower, he spoke more thoughtfully. And to the previous speaker, about how it comes together, you want to watch your words fall. I'd like a job.
Very good tip. Well, thank you so much, Diane. It's been a delight. I'm sure you'll be going out into the live stream to look for comments and questions from folks too. And if they want to connect with you, you'll be online too. Thank you so much, Diane. Have a great rest of your Saturday. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
All right. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to move Diane off of the stream here. Alex, let's test this again. Can you hear me okay?
Diane, Brenda, I hear another person talking to me right now. What am I doing wrong?
Are you hearing me talking? Is it echoing my voice, or who are you hearing talking? Is it sounding like me? Do you have any other web pages open? We're going to do a little crowdsourcing, guys. So hold on just a second. Do you have any other web pages open right now? Do you have LinkedIn open? Do you have your phone open with any apps right now? No, I'm hearing the reverb come back. So Alex, can you unplug your headset? Unplug your headset.
It's the same thing. I did that before. I unplugged it.
Like me? Do you have any other web pages open? We're going to do a little.
Can you hear that? It's a kind of delayed recording.
Do you have any other web pages open right now? So let's try this. Try leaving the StreamYard and then coming back in again. Okay.
Should I sign out and sign out?
Sign back in. Yep. You're going to sign out, come back in. And I'm going to mute just for a second while Alex does that. Guys, we never have mistakes during my LinkedIn Live. Did you know that? I don't have mistakes. We have learning experiences, and I like to share what's happening behind the scenes so you guys can see what's happening behind the scenes, right? And we're actually going to be chatting with Alex in just a second about, let me just pull up his topic up on screen so I can kind of get the verbiage correctly in here. We're going to be talking about how to build rapport in a video interview. And I know many of you are doing video interviews because it's the only way we're interviewing, right? Right now, I think some companies are bringing people back in small groups, but really for the most part, we're doing everything virtual. And technology is great when it works, right? And sometimes it doesn't work, even when you're using a Zoom or StreamYard or any other technology. So we're going to work our way through this together with Alex today. We're going to troubleshoot this. And as soon as he comes back into the stream, I'm going to pull him back up. While we're waiting for him to do that, I want to welcome, if anyone's just joining, we're here for a LinkedIn Live-a-thon. And this is an event that I kind of had a burst of inspiration over coffee back in January. And I kind of said, I've got LinkedIn Live, I've got access to a lot of great speakers in my network. I want to serve more people that are in career transition in between successes right now, because it's tough, right? And you are awesome, you are valuable, you are, worthy, and it's just the circumstances that you've been in that may be causing some challenges. So I started to pull together experts, pull together this LinkedIn Live event, and pull together people. Alex, how are we doing? Are you still getting the double echo?
I'm still hearing an early recording.
Okay, so do you have LinkedIn open in another tab on your computer anywhere right now?
Yes.
Close that off, sir, and only be in StreamYard if you could. Okay, so you have only
Yes.
StreamYard open. Is it still?
Yeah. Bear with me for a second.
All right, and we're going to be
Okay.
moving into our next discussion.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's great. Oh my God.
Just one audio. You don't have duplicating audio fighting right now. Do
No,
you?
right now it's fine.
We figured it out, Alex. High five, sir. Put your hand up to the screen right now. There you go. Boom. We did it. All right. So let's get into our conversation here today. And we're here in our LinkedIn Live-a-thon for Job Seekers event. And Alex, I'm trying to remember how you came to me. Was it someone suggesting? Or
No, you made an incredible presentation for David Schuckman in Princeton, New Jersey. And I so much liked the way you conducted it and the content, and you smile and how you're able to connect with people. And I said, I need to connect with this lady. And we did.
Wonderful.
And not only that, but similar to other speakers, I have your...
Yay!
Absolutely. And similar to Diane, I also happen to have a personal picture with Dr. Ruth.
Oh, you do? Small world. Look at that. Something in common there.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Brenda, how am I going to share my my external screen?
Sure. So what we're going to do, Alex, in the bottom of your StreamYard, you should see a share button. So click on the share button, and that will share your screen. And then I'm like the meeting moderator, so I have to give you share privileges. So once it appears in the share area, then I will click on approve it, and then it will pull up on screen, and then you can navigate through your slides.
Okay, so select window screen. Okay, how do I find the screen that I need to select?
So just if you could, if you share your screen, I'm trying to think of how I do this on mine. If I click on...
Okay, I say share. Okay, I click on the share.
Yep.
It's not a video file. It's a share screen, right?
That's okay. So go ahead and click on share screen, and then navigate to your PowerPoint deck or whatever it is that you're showing. I hope you guys don't mind I'm walking Alex through this while you're watching. I'm sure you don't mind, but give us just a second. We'll get it there, Alex.
Okay, so it's a screen sharing easiest with two monitors. Share screen.
That's okay. Just click on the first screen.
Share screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Not yet. Did you click on share it?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not seeing it yet. So when I click on share screen, and then it says click on share screen, and then it asks me, what do I want to share? Your entire screen, application window, or Chrome tab. Are you seeing that?
No.
Okay. So click on share. When you click on share screen, what are you seeing? If somebody says you have to tap on the PowerPoint. So click and tap on the PowerPoint.
Okay, very well. Okay. So let me go to the PowerPoint. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
No, that's okay. And guys, we want to work through this. We are in a technology world right now where this is the way that we're communicating. And if you ever had something like this happen in a job interview, somebody might say, we want to see a project. Can you share your screen? You know, I mean, if you can, try to practice beforehand with a friend. But if not, in the middle of an interview, you know, just work through it. You know, try to like we're doing right now. We'll work through the issue. Just let me know what you can see on screen, Alex, and then I'll have to guide you through pulling that out.
I have the external screen shows my slides.
Okay.
On my big screen, I see you and several other windows. For example, will you allow StreamYard to see your screen? I say allow.
Yes, but there you go.
Okay. It doesn't allow me. It says not now. I don't know why.
Alex, so we got two routes we can do because we're at 12:40. We've got another person coming in the room at 1 o'clock. So we could either proceed without your slide deck, or do you want to email me your slide deck and I could share it for you? It's up to you.
Yes. How about if I send that to you?
Okay, go ahead and do that. And I'll let you navigate behind there and pull it up. And while we're waiting for that to come through, guys, I'm just going to ask for, you know, anybody who's watching here today, do you have any questions for Alex about video interviewing, or do you have tips on video interviewing? Feel free to pull your comments up on screen. And while we're waiting for those to come up, I am going to, don't mind at all, rather endearing. This happens to all of us, right? I mean, everyone has probably had a Zoom hiccup at one point or another. Tracy, I do in fact have superpowers, mainly fueled by caffeine. This is a mug that my husband got me for Valentine's Day, pink. I love it. But part of my superpowers is I smooth things out. I remember growing up, being in the middle of 3 children, my mom used to say I had the ability to be a good mediator between my older sister and younger sister who would bicker back and forth a lot, and just kind of leveling things out. And maybe it's just a nice skill to have over time throughout my career, because when you are emceeing an event, the unexpected will happen, just like it does occasionally happen when you're in a Zoom interview, right? And we just, all good, no worries. That's the mindset. Going to Diane's talk earlier, you have to grab that mindset and be in there, because yes, Mia, we have all been there, haven't we? And it's just sometimes the side effect of technology. Sometimes it's not us, it's the technology. And I'm noticing I have the slide deck in the background, Alex. So I'm vamping. I could be on a talk show, don't you guys think? I could do my own talk show. What do you think, Alex? I could do one probably, right? In the background?
Absolutely, yeah. So if you can put up my slides, and I will tell you when to move on. I will move very fast. It's very colorful. And can people hear me? I assume the answer is yes.
Yep, we can hear you perfectly. And I'm just loading the slide deck in the background, and I just enabled it in my background, and now I'm going to push it up on screen. I'm telling you guys what I'm doing as I'm going through the steps to fill the space a little bit. And I do want to have a little bit of white space in our talk, but I also don't want people to drop off. Don't go away, you guys. We're going to figure this out. So I'm going to click now on share. Alex, I believe you can see it up on screen now, right?
Yeah, that's fine. You want to show only the big one, not the
How's
detail. That? No, we still see both.
Still seeing both. Oh, let me go back to StreamYard. Now I've got to go back in here, and I've got to click on, let's see, my screen that is showing. Let me just stop sharing. We're going to figure this out. We're going to probably have to cut a little bit of content out. Unfortunately, Alex, I apologize.
Yeah, that's fine. I will go very fast. Just go back. Okay, keep going. Fine. Okay, so again, this is an important presentation. Why? Because it's very likely we will have an interview that it's likely to be via video. Okay, can you move the slide, Brenda?
You know what? It's not loading in the Google, so let me just pull it up in PowerPoint instead.
Okay, good. Okay, go to the next one. Okay, so there are 2 types of video. On this left side, basically there is an interview with the human. It might be one person, it might be more than one person, but look what's happening on the right-hand side. You're going to be invited to make a video interview with a computer. There's no person. Go to the next slide.
Let me pull us back in here. Okay.
Okay, this is what will happen. The team will review all the videos that have been created, and you can give 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. Probably those that have 5 stars, they will be invited back for perhaps for further interviews. Go to the next slide. And this is really the big picture here. The picture is there is a beautiful lady in her wedding gown, and who is the best fit for me, she's asking. And actually, there are several people that want her attention. Go to the next slide. So, as a candidate, which one of the following is most important in the interview? What do you have to do? Do you have to charm, inspire, sway, impress, pressure, convenience, sell? No, you have to influence. Let's talk about the definition of influence. Influence is having an effect on the person's behavior. And I'm going to talk about 3 ways to influence in a video interview. There are more. I'm going to focus on 3. The first one is the rational. And when we talk about rational influence, we talk about the skills. Skills is what brings you into the interview. Your title is very important. You were a senior vice president in the corporation. You have an advanced degree from an Ivy League school. Your past employers are Google, Honeywell, and GE, and you have lots of accomplishments. These are rational. The next one is the emotional influence. Now, yes, you have a brand. It's very important the culture you came from. You do have a reputation. Hopefully, you also have prestige. You are an authority because you supervise lots of people and you have a lot of power. There is a perception about you before you step into the interview. And you know what? Even religion may be something that will influence them. And the last one is the behavioral influence. Handshake, well, not today. Probably we are bumping elbows, but your looks definitely matters. The way you dress, absolutely. Yes, your age has something to do with how you influence them. And of course, your communication style and your body language. So my question to you is this: which of these three influences is the most prevalent? I say it is the heavily on emotions. We make emotional decisions. How are the hiring decisions made? Well, more on what they see than what they hear. We are absorbing so much more through our eyes than through our ear. It was mentioned before. So here is Professor Morabian. He is a UCLA professor emeritus. He said that 55% of communication has to do with body language, only 38% with the voice, and only 7% with the words you say. And here are an example. For example, these are emotional decisions. Fear. If I'm not making a decision now, I'm toast. This guy is pushed by his boss to make a quick decision. Envy. If I don't make a decision now, my competition will win. This guy is interviewing the lady. She's very much in demand. If he's not making a decision, somebody else will. Pride. If I don't make a decision now, I will look smart. Okay, so what do you do in a video interview? You must establish emotional connection. Very, very important. It's easy to build rapport with people you like. You engage, smile, good. So let's focus on the body language in a video interview. If you look for this picture, there are 5 people there. And if I'm asking you to write a paragraph of every single one of them, undoubtedly you can. These people just sit there. But just by looking at them, their body language, their facial expression talks to you. Okay, so what is this guy thinking? What's he thinking? I'm not sure if this is going to work out. What is she thinking? Oh no, I'm not good enough for this job. What's she communicating here? This is shocking. Look at her facial expression. Very important slide here. Where is the focus when you're interviewing? And this is where we have a big problem, because when you are the candidate and you go in for an interview, your head is focusing on content. They are looking at you. So you focus on content, they are looking at you. There is a point here. The problem is you need to focus not only on what you say, but what they see. In a stressful situation, or behavior is a reaction to something said. Examples are frowning or looking away. Look, I can tell you that these ladies are not looking the way they look because they're bored. Something happened before that. Compressed lips indicate that someone is in trouble. I don't need to explain that to you. You understand exactly what's happening here. He said, damn it, I made a mistake. Yeah, that's fine. Go back. Go ahead. Okay. Staring at a person makes it uncomfortable. You don't want this to happen to you. You don't want to do this to anyone else. Signs of insecurity and nervousness. You don't even pay attention, but you're kind of do something like this. They know you're nervous. Okay, so what's the meaning here? And here, with my little sense of humor, I want to differentiate men from women. Men may interpret this differently than women. Yeah, this is what it means. I'm not sure. There's nothing romantic or whatever based on this facial expression. If possible, sit squarely facing the monitor. If you sit sideways or anything different, you want to face the monitor. If panel interview, don't move your head in the middle of the sentence. Talk to one person at a time. And I guarantee you guys, before COVID, you used to go out to a restaurant. You sit at the table, 6 people. And when you talk, I absolutely guarantee you, your head is moving all the time. Don't do that, because if you move your head, you're not focusing on anyone. Now, looking in the sky is a sign that you're searching for an answer. You do this in an interview via video, they know exactly you don't have the answer. So what not to do in a job interview? Appear unprepared. They can tell if you're not prepared, it takes 1 minute, less than a minute, and they can tell this guy hasn't prepared. Don't recite your resume. They called you in because they have your resume. Don't go over it in details because they may not have a patient to sit through the entire thing. Don't share your life story. Do that later. Right now, when they say, tell me about yourself, get to the point. Talk about anything that may seem irrelevant. You know, if you have a sense of humor, that's wonderful. But you know what? Be very careful how you use it. You may get in mud. Don't be long-winded. You never know how long the person listening to you, how much patience they have. And these are all my slides. I went through it very, very fast because I wanted to leave as much time for questions and answers.
That was wonderful, Alex. We recovered, sir. We got it through it, right? And we still have time.
With your help.
There we go, right? We just keep our cool heads and we keep moving along here. So if you're joining us a little bit late here today, we're here with Alex talking about how to build rapport in a video interview. And I want to encourage the audience, if you have any questions or tips about video interviewing, to drop those into comments right now. And I'm going to pull those up on screen. And I see one question came in from Lisa here, Alex. And Lisa's asking, how can you pick up on body language in an interview or in video if you're looking at just one person? What's your advice for Lisa?
Well, look, we know very well how to read somebody's body language. And by the way, we learned it very, very early on in our lives. Actually, again, with my sense of humor, I'm asking people, at what early age we learn how to read somebody else's body language? And here is my answer. 20 minutes after you're born. You know how I know? I know 20 minutes after you were born, you could communicate through your body language to your mom that you're hungry. Or later on, when your diapers were full, I am certain you could communicate with your parents. So yes, we learn body language very, very early on. And from that point on, we just become better at it.
Yeah, great point. And there's even studies that show, Alex, too, that when babies prefer to look at pictures of people and the people looking at them than inanimate objects, even if they're bright colors and things like that. So when you're in a video interview, I mean, I talked about this earlier, I'm not sure if you were on, but look at the camera. I mean, it's really hard. Like I'm pointing at the camera right now. When I look at the camera, Alex, it looks like I'm looking at you, right? As opposed to when I'm looking at you on screen, look at the difference there and the level of engagement. So So tips on that.
Yep.
And anything to add here, Alex, for additional tips on video interviewing? I know a lot of people, they've never done a video interview before. So what should we be thinking about in getting prepared for that interview, or how can we make sure that it goes the best way possible?
Well, first of all, there are some technical things you must take care of. First of all, light. Light is very important. I have in front of me 3 lights. Because I have a window here, but I don't want to depend on that. The interview could be on a gray day. The interview could be at night. Second, I elevated my camera like you, so it's at my eye level.
Eye level, right?
Third, I'm using earbuds. Why? Because I can control the quality. Some computers have inexpensive microphones. Some computers have very good microphone. You don't want to depend on that quality. I replaced it with this because I control it. Next, find a position on the screen that you look best. Because you see, if I move way back like this, my face is so tiny, it's like a size of a stamp on an envelope. If I come real close, then all you see is my face. And the last thing, I have a background here. Look, I will show you something, what I do.
Yeah.
I'm hanging it from the ceiling, you see?
I love it. That's a great tip.
Yeah. Because otherwise I have another computer, I have a desk, I have books, I have papers. I want to force you to look at me and only me. You see, Brenda, in your case, I want to focus on you. But inadvertently, my eye goes to the right shoulder. I don't know. There is a decorative piece. There's something in red or what. Oh, it must be an apple pie, right?
Yeah, it's my pie costume. So.
Okay, only now. But you see, my eye moves there inadvertently. The other end, there are some, I don't know, certificates, diploma, whatever on the wall. So instead of me looking at you, my eye goes there. Yeah. I am basically forcing you. There's nothing else you can look at, only at me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, intentional. And mine isn't, I mean, what we're talking about here is intentional background. And Alex is showing us this clarity technique where you're focusing only on him. And I mean, I'm not the star of the show here today. My guests are the star of the show. So I'm letting my background do a little bit of talking behind me here. And I've got my book over one shoulder, some diplomas. But I think the point there, Alex, is whatever it is, it's intentional. And if you don't want people to be looking at your kitchen, your bedroom, your living room during a job interview, I think that background is great. Did you purchase that on Amazon, or where did you get that from?
I got this at B&H Photo in New York City probably 5-6 years ago. Mm-hmm. It can fold itself. I hang it up. Every time I have a client or I do something like this, I put it in. I don't want to distract you, and I'll tell you why. People remember visually way longer than auditory. Mm-hmm. No question in my mind, Brenda, you and I can talk about a James Bond movie that we saw 18 years ago, 15 years ago.
Yep.
But if I ask you, Brenda, can you tell me verbatim 2 sentences of a person talking to you 2 days ago?
Right.
Probably you say, Alex, I cannot do that. So how come you can talk to me for 10 minutes about a James Bond movie that we saw well over a decade ago? Because our brain captures the visual aspect of what we saw on the James Bond movie and not exactly who said what when.
Right.
And when you bring that into the interview, and I'm a very experienced interviewer, if I have 5, 6, 7 resumes on my desk at the end of the process, which could easily take a month, mm-hmm. If I say Brenda Meller, I don't even remember. Have I talked to her? That means you did not leave any impression on me, and that's very bad.
Well, that's good to know and good to remember. And I'm going to bring our next guest in just so we can do a quick little audio check. Hey, Joel, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. Honored to be here. I've been loving all of the wisdom that's been shared, so I'm super excited to be here with you guys.
Good. Hang out just for a second. I'll bring you back in here, and we're going to finish off with Alex here today. Alex, I just want to say thank you, sir, for your time today. I know we had some technical issues, but that's okay. We worked through them. And you know what? We've got a great slide deck. Are you able, or would it be okay if I shared that slide deck with folks that are watching here today?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. And I just want to give you the opportunity, Alex, for any final comments for the group, any resources you'd like to offer to job seekers, anything else you'd like to tell us?
Well, all I can say, look, I'm doing what I'm doing because I love helping people. Yeah. I put my last slide with my phone number, with my email, with my website. I am a resource, and I want to help those that need it.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Alex. And thank you for making the time for us here on a Saturday. And I'm hoping you'll be able to go out into the live stream on LinkedIn to continue to help answer some questions for folks on any questions about video interviewing for today.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, sir. Have a great afternoon and enjoy the rest of your weekend. All right. So, Joel, we're moving into, we got the final hour. You're rounding us up on the final hour here today.
Yes.
How are you doing today?
I am doing well. How are you?
Doing great. It's finally great to chat with you. We actually met, if you will, I'm using air quotes, met, quote unquote, on Clubhouse. We were talking about Clubhouse a little bit earlier, and I was so impressed with you. I know you've been on a couple stages on Clubhouse there and talking about interviewing tips and whatnot. Yep. And I tapped you and I said, hey, I've got this event coming up. Do you want to come on? And what do you want to talk about? And you said, let's talk about reverse engineering the job search. So before we jump in there, Joel, why don't you take a few minutes, if you could, tell people a little bit about who you are and what your business is all about.
Absolutely. And number one, just kudos to you for putting this event together. And I was looking on, on kind of how many people are out there, and it's like, this is just on LinkedIn. And I'm now seeing that you've got Facebook and YouTube as well, but 200 to 300 people out there on LinkedIn. So just great job putting this together. My background is, so I spent the last 6 years of my career in agency recruiting. So I was an agency recruiter, a headhunter, people might know us as, and essentially companies would hire me because they needed to find somebody for a job, and maybe their job ads weren't working, or maybe some of their more traditional methods for attracting candidates weren't working. So they would get a hold of me and say, hey, we need this person with this experience, go find him for me. And so I spent a lot of time using LinkedIn Recruiter. So that is like a pretty high level version of LinkedIn. You got to pay a lot of money for it, but it really gives you a lot of insight to how recruiters are searching for candidates. And I spent a lot of time, really consulting companies on not only like how do we find the best talent, but how do we attract them? And really the goal of a good recruitment agency is to not just find people, but you really want to consult companies on how do we attract the best talent. And then obviously you get into interviews, you get into counter offers, offer stages, negotiations. So I had zero experience before getting into recruitment. I was really from like the banking world. So I had experience in terms of hiring the banking team, but I hadn't really had any experience in the recruiting, and I got really thrown into it head first. So, so what I love about recruiting is I love the fact that you do get to help people. I love the fact that a lot of times you're dealing with a really big decision for people, but obviously, as we all know, anybody who's on LinkedIn, we know that, the recruitment process isn't perfect. There's a lot of issues. There's a lot of technology that's come into play, which has made things on the surface easier for people, but it's actually kind of complicated things as well. So, yeah, I'm happy to share some of the tips I have. I know you asked me like, what would you want to share with people? And one of the things I'm really passionate about is doing things differently. And so I came up with an article. It was one of my first LinkedIn articles, actually. It was reverse engineering the job search. So that is what I'm here to do. Share some hopefully creative or different views on job search, and hopefully the audience will find it helpful. And I see there's a question here. What is Clubhouse? That's a whole different LinkedIn Live, I think.
That's a whole other event, right? And remind me too, Joel, are you presenting slides, or are we just doing a talk here today? This is like a very impromptu I did notice that people had slides. I don't have any slides. What I'd love to do, I'm definitely more of a conversation. And I would just say anyone out there too, if there's things that you have questions on, I like to pay attention to the comments too. So I'm open to kind of help out with questions.
Yeah, so I'm ready to get going if you want me to, or if you have any other questions.
Let me throw one off to you to start, because people are watching, and they're people that are watching. There's some people that are in career transition. I don't like using unemployed, because all you are is in career transition or in between successes. That's all you are, right? Until you find your next job. Or there might be some people, Joel, that are watching that are working but looking, and they don't want their employer to know, or their coworker, so they may not even want to ask a question. But some people are kind of like intrigued by this topic, reverse engineering the job search. So what does that mean? Let's start off there.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, like when I think of reverse engineering anything, you want to start by thinking like, what's the end result? And so obviously in a job search, the end result is getting a job. So I just like to look at things like when you've got the job, like what are the steps leading up? So you have obviously the acceptance of the job offer, you have the negotiation for salary, you have the interview, you have the phone interview, you have the application going through, you have networking. So I like to look at like how do you actually get to that point? And one of the things that always surprised me when I was in recruitment was I would just ask people like who are in the job search. I just say, well, where do you want to work? And like, where do you envision yourself working? And a lot of times, even that question, a lot of answers would come out. So a lot of people would just say, well, I'll work anywhere, or I'll take any job at this point. And so what I encourage people to do is, just like in the sales process, you really want to narrow down like where do you want to work? And one of the things that I like to think about too is like, when I think of the job search, obviously there's the immediate moment of like, I need a job right now, and I need to financially support people around me. And I get the immediacy of it. But if we take a step back, when I think of reverse engineering anything, again, it's like maybe the end result of this job search isn't that you work at this company. Maybe it's you work at a different company, but how do we get to like working at one of your dream companies? So the reason I say that is because a lot of times I think when we think of a job search, like a lot of people will say, well, I want to work at Microsoft, or I want to work at Amazon, or I want to work at Facebook. And obviously like those companies are extremely challenging to get into, and everybody is wanting to work at those companies. So if you can take a step back and go, okay, well, let me take a look at the Facebook, let's say software engineer. Let's see where they used to work before. And you can start kind of working things backwards. And what you'll see is a lot of times people don't necessarily just start off at one of these really desirable companies, but they have like a progression to get to there. And so I think a lot of times, like when you are able to kind of look at where people are at, look at how they got there, you can start to kind of reverse engineer a way in. And the other way I like to look at it is when I was in recruitment, there was two ways I would lose. Number one, I would lose to an internal candidate getting the job. I think that happens a lot. But then the second way that I would lose out all the time was through referrals. So to me, like the next step or one of the steps behind getting actually in front of a company is how do you make yourself that internal referral? So how do you get to that position? And that to me is networking. It's getting to know people. And one of the other things that I like to encourage people to do is, like, if you have a job right now, to me, you're still a job seeker. So if you're happily employed right now, to me, you're still a job seeker, because unless you're planning to work at that company forever, which some people, maybe you are planning that, but let's get real here. Like a lot of times, like you're not working at a company forever. There's a lot of things that are out of your control. So I think, to me, like you start your job search while you have a job. And so I think a lot of the information I'm going to share today are things that you can be doing right now. And I think a lot of people get a job and then they're like, okay, the networking's over. And one of the things that I've noticed is like, we're always networking and we're always making those connections to get to where we want to go. So the more we can map that out, the better that we're going to be. And I'm looking at some of the questions here as well. Someone asked me, what type of microphone do I have? It is a Blue Yeti. So thank you for asking that. So again, okay, so when I look at things, I look at like, what are the top 5 companies that you would ever want to work for? And so I think for a lot of people that could be like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, a lot of the big companies. That's what I hear. So you have to look at like, how do I get into there? And so what I start doing is I start mapping out the organization, and I start trying to figure out like who's in the positions that I want to be, and then who are they reporting to, who are they connecting to. And a lot of times those are the people that you want to be actually connecting with. So I think a lot of people make the mistake of, let me just look up all of the recruiters, and the recruiters, they're the worst people to connect with when you're looking for a job, because when you're in a recruitment position, which I was in for a number of years, we're basically just, we're kind of like order takers. So you've got a hiring manager that basically says, we've got this job filled, or we've got this job open. Can you fill it for us?
Yeah.
And so we're actually just responding to orders. So what you want to do is you want to get into who are the hiring managers and who are the people actually making the decisions. So one of the ways I suggest doing that is, if you can start to like map out the organization and start to do searches in LinkedIn, you can find out who that marketing manager is. You can find out who the engineering manager is. You can find out who are the people who are actually in the jobs that you want to get to. And those are the people that you want to start networking with. And those are the people that you want to connect with.
So can I jump in? I want to ask this question.
Yeah.
A lot of times, and I've heard this question from so many people, a lot of times when people hear, oh, that person's a recruiter, I want to connect with the recruiter, and I want to connect with Joel, and Joel, can you help me find a job because you're a recruiter? Yeah. So, and I think that may not be completely accurate in terms of their assumption, because this person's asking, what's the best way to find a recruiter you can work with one-on-one? So what's your response to that?
Well, my response is, first of all, like, there's different types of recruiters. So you've got internal recruiters that let's say an internal recruiter at Nike, because someone asked about Nike. That person's job is, they're usually like the front line of defense. So their job really is to kind of weed out people, not weed people in. So a recruiter's job is to find a hiring manager out of their applicant system. They want to find them the best candidate. So really a recruiter's job is, they're kind of passing information over to a hiring manager and saying, I think this person could be good, or I think this person could be good. And then the hiring manager is the one ultimately making the decision, saying, okay, phone interview this person. So when you reach out to a recruiter, they have zero idea. Most of the time, they have zero idea of like what are like the actual goals of that department. Like, they're not thinking strategically, what needs do we really have? They're literally just listening to the hiring manager. And the hiring manager says, here's, we've got a sales position open, go fill it. And so they're taking an old job description and they're looking through the job description, they're searching through their ATS with keywords, and they're literally just trying to find great people. So the problem is, if you reach out to an internal recruiter, they're just basically reacting to everything the hiring manager is telling them. And a lot of these recruiters will have 20, 30, 40, maybe 50 open roles that they're working on. Wow. And so if you think, okay, I see this recruiter at Nike, I'll just reach out to them on LinkedIn. It sounds great, and it sounds like a really logical thing to do. The problem is that recruiter's really overwhelmed, and they're trying to work through the system. So I see this question. I'm referring to external recruiters. Look, with external recruiters, I think I was an external recruiter for a long time, and I think the challenge is you need to be open to work with them while you have a job. Like, that's the best time to start building relationships with them. Unfortunately, when you don't have a job, the reason an external recruiter is not going to be that helpful is because when they're submitting candidates to their clients are paying them a fee. So from just a logical point of view, and it's real point of view, if I send a company a person who doesn't have a job, and then I say, you've got to, and for that to hire this person, you've got to pay them whatever they're worth, and you've got to pay me a 25% fee. They're not going to want to do it, because in their mind, they're going, well, this person's actively on the job market. Why would I pay a fee for that? So I think when you have a job, that's when you should be building relationships with headhunters or external recruiters, because that's when you're most useful to them, which sounds really terrible. And I'm not saying that like every external recruiter is like that, but it's just a fact. Like,
that's where they're being paid. I mean, that's
where they're getting
paid. I mean, could I hire you, Alex? I'm sorry, Alex is in my head for my last name. So could I hire you and say, find me a job and I will pay you X $1,000 per month until you find? Are there people out there like that? I mean, that's a service, right? But a lot of people are like, if they're unemployed they hear about these headhunters, I just got to connect with headhunters and they can find me jobs. But the motivation and the business motivation is coming from the person who's paying you. So if you're not paying the person to find you a job, they're being motivated by the employer, to your point, right?
It's such an interesting situation, because the narrative of an external recruiter is, I'm all about the candidates and I want the candidates. But to your point, whoever is paying the bills, that is who you care about. And unless you're working with a career coach or like an interview coach that you're directly paying and you're saying, I want you to craft my resume, I want you to coach me, I want you to help me get a job, you're paying them. That's a different situation. With a headhunter, literally the person who's paying them is the client. So I think it's helpful for people to know that, because what will happen is like headhunters are very easy to get a hold of, right? Because they want candidates in play. But the reason people get ghosted is because a lot of recruiters are not paid. They're not paid on a retainer. They're paid on whether or not they fill the roles, which what that means basically is they're measuring every action that they do. And they're looking and going, is this a quick way to money or isn't it? And that sounds really kind of short-term thinking. And it's because most recruitment agencies are very short-term thinking. They're thinking about, how do I reach my monthly goal? How do I reach my quarterly goal? How do we reach our goal as an agency? And so, that's why I say, like, if you want to work with a recruiter and start building those relationships, you've got to do it when you have a job, because that's when you're most valuable. And then if you've built a good relationship with them over 5-10 years, they probably will help you as a job seeker, but it's going to be hard if you don't have a job for a company to pay a fee for you. And it's kind of a messed up thing. And I think it's an issue, but it's a reality too. And I think sometimes like we can have wishes of how things are, but we have to look at the reality. And it's helpful as a job seeker to know these things, because then you know who's going to waste your time, because your time's valuable as well. Like, who's a time waster and who are the actual people that are going to move my job search forward. And for me, that's why you need to get away from the recruiters, and you need to focus on the people in those positions that can make you a referral into the company.
And Olivia, I see she's saying thank you. I mean, and you're really giving us to this heart to heart here, Joel. I mean, you're sharing with us the reality of the recruiting world and the business world that's hiring, recruiters. But Olivia's saying this is eye-opening. She now understands why she's not getting any traction from recruiters. So thank you for sharing that with the group.
Yeah, no worries. And I see this is interesting. So if you're networking with some target companies and have valuable informational chats, but they're not willing to shepherd your candidacy to the hiring manager because they don't. Yeah, look, Jim, you bring up a great question, which is why. Number one, someone said this earlier, like there's no perfect answer with any of this, right? There's advice and there's strategies. And I think to your point, Jim, like it does require a lot of informational chats. Now, I would say that in any relationships are usually formed over time. So that's a challenge, right? Because in a job setting or a job search situation, you want results quickly. And this is definitely something which can take some time. But I think there's a lot of power in follow-up. And it's after those conversations. Like I think you're saying like, what's next? To me, what's next is continuing to build the relationship and continuing to stay in front of them. So you can show number one, the value that you bring. And then number two, you can show that you're motivated for the job. But to your point, like it is frustrating. Like if you have a really great chat with someone and then they're not willing to work with you. What I would say though is it's kind of like a numbers game in sales as well, where it's like you just have to keep having those conversations and realizing that eventually you do actually become that internal referral. And on the flip side, you continue doing some of the outbound work, which would be applying to jobs and maybe some of the things that are more standard. The way I approach anything in life anyway is just like, is it moving the needle forward towards my ultimate goal? And I think that's a challenge, but it's like, step by step, doing right things does pay off over time. Yeah. And Michael says you can't buy a job. You have to be qualified and have a compatible personality. Good point there, Michael, right? You can't just like go out and pay someone to, find a job for it. I mean, you have to be qualified. They're not just going to deliver you to the table, right? Well, and I think like that's why like a lot of times like, we get on, and I get on people about this with like the LinkedIn posts that we see where it's like, I hired this person and they had a great personality and it all worked out magically. Like, you have to be qualified to do something. And at the end of the day, when businesses look at who they bring on, they look at 2 things or 3 things. Like, are you making us money? Are you showing us a clear way to save money? And or are you adding, like, in a leadership way to help the team? And so to that point, it's like, you have to be qualified. And personality does play into that. But obviously, like, it'd be stupid for us to think that, like, if a job requires 15 to 20 years of experience, or you have to have experience with a startup, for example, like they're looking for someone who's got experience with a startup and going into like a sale and an acquisition. If you don't have that experience, your personality is not going to get you through. So I think, again, it's like, that is a great point. It's like, focus on the positions that you are qualified for, that you know you can execute, and get really good at telling a story and showing your value that you're bringing to people. And it's a skill, and it's changed a lot. Like, my last couple months of being in recruitment, one of the things that I thought was really sad was there was a lot of people that were getting furloughed and losing their jobs that hadn't been in the job market for a long time. And if you haven't been in the job market, let's say for 10 years, it's a completely different world than it was 10 years ago. And a lot of the strategies are digital. And a skill that matters a lot more now is, do you have the ability to digitally connect with someone online and take that conversation offline? And that is like a crucial skill across all business, but particularly for job seekers. And that's something where, like, 10 years ago, that wasn't a reality. Like, the reality was you could just go to a networking event and kind of meet with people. Different world. And so I think that, again, going back to the reverse engineering, it's like, you got to figure out, like, how can I get there? And then you've got to put yourself in that position as if you were that hiring manager, like, what would you look for? And reality is, like, you still go after people that you know who are top of mind. It's just the way you get to there has changed as well.
And I see a couple questions that are coming in right now about LinkedIn, Joel. And one person, Jasmine's asking, how can we make our about section of our profiles more effective and engaging for recruiters? Any thoughts there?
It's a great question. I think it's like a resume, right? Like, when people look at your resume, they're looking at your resume for 10 to 15 seconds. It's the same with your LinkedIn profile. So for me, the ultimate question is, in 10 seconds, do I clearly know who you are and what you do? And the best test of this is show it to people like your friends and family and be like, hey, take a look at this. Like, what do I do? And if they can't say clearly what you do, a recruiter's not going to be able to. So I think things to avoid for sure are, having like a really unprofessional picture is something to avoid. Now, you could go to my profile picture and go, well, that's not a professional picture. That's okay.
You're not looking for a job, though, Joel. You're not looking
Exactly. So be careful when you hear things like, yeah, you really want to pop out. Like, yeah, you want to pop out, but I'd probably argue, like, when you're job seeking, you kind of want to fit in, because what happens is a hiring manager will look at that. And I've seen hiring managers literally look at a profile picture and be like, yeah, I don't like that, because they're looking, how's this person going to represent my company? So first thing is profile picture. The about me section, keep it simple. And this is across the board, with whether you're talking LinkedIn content, whether you're talking your headline, keep it as simple as possible and make it easy for people to keep you in the process than rule you out. So the about me section, I hear people say, well, you need to tell a story and you need to do this. It's like, yeah, there's some truth to that. But literally the litmus test is, can I show this to my brother or my uncle? Yeah. And in 10 seconds, they can look at it and go, yeah, I know exactly what you do. If they can't do it, a recruiter is going to have a hard time doing that as well. As far as like what that looks like, I think avoid like really long paragraphs, like keep things bullet pointed. Talk about your skills and your accomplishments in a tangible way that people can see. Hey, I made this company money. I saved this company money. I led this amount of people. Numbers are really powerful. But again, it's just clear and precise. And then make sure you have a lot of those keywords that you're looking for, because SEO matters on LinkedIn. And again, a good way to do that is start typing those words in, or take a look at the people who have those positions and start to mirror their profiles as well. what I would say is like the best approach for LinkedIn profiles in general is just to think of it as a landing page. So you put your marketing hat and you go, okay, this is a landing page. Like when someone gets here, I want to create a call to action, which in a job seeker is you want them to call you or you want them to send you a message. So again, test it out with your family. Say like, what do you think of this? And like just ask them, because I think they're going to be honest with you, and they're great people to like tell you whether or not like it's clear what you do. And again, with recruiters, they're spending 10 to 15 seconds on your resume and your LinkedIn profile, and then just making a gut what's the word here? Gut determination on it. So
kind of at that gut level, right? Like
exactly.
Is this good or is this not? I mean, I sometimes have these moments too, Joel, where like someone will send me an invitation to connect and I'm like, there's just something off about this invitation. And I'm like, I look at their profile and I immediately figure it out. They don't look real. Sometimes it's the men commenting on beautiful women. And I'm like, oh, I just sense something, you know, there's just something off about it. Or it looks like they're a salesperson. All they're going to do is pitch me. And for whatever reason, it's just not the type of connection. And I think it's the same for recruiters. So bringing us back to the topic, we got about 5 minutes left here, Joel. And I know we're kind of meandering around. I think a lot of great information coming out, and so appreciate, and everyone else is enjoying the conversation as well. We're here talking about reverse engineering. Reverse engineering the job search, and Joel rather has so much great information being a recruiter and having used LinkedIn Recruiter. And a lot of times I get questions about LinkedIn Recruiter. How does it work and what should I do? And can you tell us a little bit about the importance of keywords in your headline? Should I say looking for new opportunities? Should I say a job title? What are your thoughts on that in the headline field?
Look, with all of this, and this is a big thing too.
Yeah.
You've got to experiment and you've got to see what works. And this is a great way to experiment. Change things in your profile for 2 weeks. And if you see a better response, then you know you're onto something. If you see lesser response, you're not onto something. If you send out your resume and you get 0 responses, start changing the resume, start experimenting with stuff. I think with the open to work, again, it comes back to like the realities of hiring managers. And most of the people in the audience, I'm wagering to guess that they've done some hiring themselves or they've been in the hiring process themselves. And the problem is we built this narrative that the only people who are great at jobs are the ones that have jobs. And that as much as we know that that's not true, that is,
but it's up here,
it is. So, but I also recognize the fact that like, what's really frustrating as to a recruiter is if I reach out to someone and it looks like they've still got a job and they don't. That's even worse, because then it seems like you're manipulating. So I see the fact of like, be clear with that and own it, but test it as well and just see if it works. And I would just say like, the job search is just, it's such a tough time and it's not easy for anyone. And it's reality. I'll have you guys too. If you go to my profile, the article on reverse engineering, because I know we've kind of gone all over the place. That article is actually in, it's my last article that I wrote. So you can just go to that article. And I think I actually changed my URL as well. So if you just look up Joel Lalgee, I'm the only one in the world. You can find my LinkedIn profile. But what I was going to say with that is like when I used Recruiter, go look up Boolean search. So you can Google Boolean search. And is it still best recruiter ever?
I mean, as of today, like I refreshed my page and it said, now you have the best marketing recruiter. So this is an interesting thing too. And I had it open at the beginning of the session, at the beginning of this morning, and then I just refreshed it. It wasn't showing, but now that I went into your contact info, I see the new one. So I'm going to put that up on screen instead for people.
And guys, the reason I changed that URL is because one of my clients who is a recruitment agency owner, his is like something to do with solar, and he gets clients because they just Google solar recruiter and he's the first one that comes up. So that's where like doing research on like how searchability works is key. So what I would do is look up Boolean search, which is Boolean, and do some research on like how Boolean works. And basically it's like a mathematical formula that you can type in to find people you want. So for example, if I'm looking for a digital marketer, I can type into a search bar as a recruiter. I can say digital marketer and, let's say social media marketing and I can type, and I'm basically building an equation that at the end of that equation, theoretically, I can find the perfect person. So look up how Boolean works. And then I'd also look up and research, like, how does SEO work on LinkedIn? Because there's the keywords definitely matter, but they matter in different places. So I've experimented with like changing my name, for example. I changed my name to Joel Lalji, recruiter. I think it was like turning recruiters into brands. I changed it to that. Yeah. And now LinkedIn flagged me actually, and they blocked my account and said that that wasn't my real name. But the interesting thing was I changed that, and my search results went from 2,000 a week to 7,000 a week. And it just taught me something about the power of SEO. So that's why, like, headlines, you got to play around with them. You got to play around with these things and test. But just go, like I said, Boolean search, like, learn how that works. Because then it gives you, again, it's that reverse engineering. Like, you're looking at it from a recruiter's point of view. How are they searching? How can I get on their radar? And then as far as reach out, I say in that article, like, reach out to the people that you, in theory, like, want to be. So find those people who are in the job, network and connect with them. Alexandra, thanks so much for putting that. I love that. Okay. Research is key.
Thank you is it banging? Are you guys hearing banging right now? Somebody says terrible sound. So this is what happens, Joel. In the beginning of the morning, I tell my family, I'm doing a LinkedIn Live from 10 to 2. Don't shower and try to be quiet in the household between it. I think they're building something in my son's room, like right above. I'm sorry if you guys can hear that.
Hey, I got my daughter downstairs and she's having her midday meltdown. So it's at work from home and it's weekend. So you get the weekend edition. So
and they're like, but it's the weekend. What do you mean I can't shower? Well, the bathroom's right above and you'd hear the water. But Joel, I just want to say thank you. I know it is the weekend. I want to get you back to your weekend. And I just want to thank you so much. It was great to connect with you on Clubhouse. When is your next Clubhouse room, aka event? When are you going to be on again?
So I'm in like several LinkedIn kind of, we call it like mod squads. So it's basically like different moderators I'm working with. So I typically will be on there from 3 to 5 p.m. Central, which is 4 to 6 Eastern time. And then in the mornings, I'm typically on there from like 7:30 or 8:30 Eastern to 10 Eastern with a group. I would just look up Joel Lalji. I'm the only one. You just find me on there. I stole the LinkedIn legend.
I saw that. That's
tag.
Awesome.
That's SEO on Clubhouse, by the way. Not to give too many secrets away, but Clubhouse SEO runs on like the tag first and then your name. So look me up on there. And I would just say, like, in terms of like reaching out to me, I think I got like 6,000 invitations in my inbox. So just put in there like, hey, saw you on the LinkedIn Live, and just like put context into there, and I'll definitely connect. And again, guys, like, you're going to hear so much value here. And it's like, the idea is like, take what works for you, test it out, and just be open to new things. And so, Brenda, thanks so much for inviting me here. And I think what you've done here is just super awesome. And it takes everyone who's out there, like, these LinkedIn Lives, to organize anything to organize like this is not easy. And so Brenda put out like a ton of like information on a Google Doc, like how does upload. She did a great job coordinating this. And as a reminder, like, anything on LinkedIn is typically like, it's free. So people literally give away value for free. Like, they don't get paid. This isn't Instagram where we have like brand deals circling around. So Brenda, just awesome job. I appreciate you so much. And I'm honored to be on this panel as well today.
Oh, thank you, Joel. And I think I have recently added you to my LinkedIn Rockstars list too. So you'll be appearing there in the future. Yay! So thank you so much. And I'm not sure if you're able to go on to the live stream after, in case we didn't get all the questions and comments. We'd love it if you go out there. But thank you again. And Joel, I'll let you get back to your Saturday. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
Thanks, Brenda. Take care.
All right. Take care. Thank you. All right, guys. So we are now in our final half hour of our segment here. Let me just pull our last comment up on screen. I'm piloting and co-piloting. And we are into our final half hour segment of the day here. If you've been watching since this morning, thank you for watching. This has been a fun day. If this is the second time I've done this, a monthly event, I'm calling this a LinkedIn Live-a-thon for job seekers. And what I learned the first time, if you watched it the first time, the event was from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And at 2 p.m., like literally on the dot, 2 p.m., the live stream stopped. Were you guys on? Did you see that happening last month? And what I was thinking was happening was I thought I broke LinkedIn. I was like, yeah, I broke LinkedIn. But what I discovered after the fact was the StreamYard is pushing it out onto LinkedIn, and LinkedIn only allows for a 4-hour segment at a time. So at the 2 o'clock mark, it stopped, and then I had to start a new stream. So 2 reasons I made this a shorter event today. One was because of the StreamYard LinkedIn issue with the timing. And the second was just for my own benefit, running a 6-hour event on a Saturday. I love doing this, love offering the information, but I was like spent by the end of the last event. And I put myself as the last speaker here today. For those of you who are working but looking, you may be watching this segment today on LinkedIn Live, or maybe you're watching the playback. Maybe you're watching it on Facebook or YouTube or something else. You don't need to comment necessarily during this section because you may be working but looking. You don't want people to know that you are looking for a job, but you are getting to that point where you're ready to make a move. The market is what it is right now, right? And maybe you wanted to move last year and then the pandemic hit and you decided, nope, I'm going to shelter in place, so to speak. I'm going to stay here. But now you're realizing business is stable. It's going to be like this for a little while, and you really want to start making a move. So we're going to move into the last half-hour segment here featuring me. So maybe I should like spin around in my chair, right? Presenting our last presenter, Brenda Meller. There we go. So it feels like it's an entrance, but this is just me solo. And I didn't prepare a fancy slide deck for you guys. I hope you don't mind. What I did is I prepared a Post-it note of my notes. This is literally all I'm going to be talking about here today. So I want to give you guys some takeaways if you are working but looking for a job and you're using LinkedIn. And the very first thing I'm going to give you, so many people I've talked to and they're like, I don't want to just start being active on LinkedIn because it's going to look like I'm looking for a job, but I haven't been active on LinkedIn since the last time I made a job move. Okay. So here's my very first tip for you. What I want you to do is I want you to start spending time in your homepage feed. Okay. So the first thing you're going to do is not update your profile. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to spend time in your homepage feed, and you're going to do this every single business day. And I want to do a quick screen share of my screen here. I'm going to start with Joel. But if you go to your LinkedIn, if you click on either the in symbol or the home symbol, and same thing, you can do this from your phone. Go to the home or click on the in symbol or the home symbol. Start with your homepage feed. Okay. So if you're working but looking, this is what you want to do. This is a news feed. Okay? This is people that are in your network, people that you're connected with, that you're following. These might be company pages that you're following as well. But think about this as like a source of information. It's ways that people are trying to communicate with you. So let's scroll through and see what people are talking about. And I want you to spend 15 minutes a day on the homepage every single business day. You can commit to 15 minutes, right? And we all have 24 hours in a day. If I want to find a new job, I've got to start slowly working in LinkedIn so that it doesn't look like I'm looking. It looks like I'm just getting more active on the platform. By scrolling through your homepage 15 minutes a day, when you see posts that resonate with you, give them a like, just like I'm doing. That was easy. It took a half a second to click on like. If you want to get fancy, you can hover over and you can give it the applause, the celebrate. You can show support. You can give love. You can say it was insightful. Or you can do, somebody called it the crying baby. The last one, it's actually called curious. It's like the guy who's like, looks like he's rubbing his mustache or something, the purple guy, right? The purple crying baby. But that's a curious one. But you can just give it a like. That's easy enough to do. Continue to scroll through your homepage feed. And as you are seeing comments from other people in your network, and Rupesh is a gentleman that I've not met in person, but we're interacting a lot on Clubhouse right now. And I see that he has created a poll using reactions, and he's asking, at what age did you start working in hospitality? I actually had a restaurant job when I was in my teens, so I would give it a like because I started waitressing, I think, when I was 14 or 15. So I could do that, and then I might add a comment, and when I add a comment, I'm going to add it of 5 or more words, and I will say I had my first waitressing job at, I think it was actually 14 or maybe 15. And if you're in Metro Detroit, my first waitressing job was at Eddie's Drive-In. If you're in Macomb County, you probably are familiar with Eddie's Drive-In. It's like an A&W. Roller skating, car hop waitresses. That was me. I actually had roller skates and I was delivering food on trays, the hot dog, coney dogs, all that good stuff. So I'm adding a comment of 5 or more words. Okay. So this is a technique that you can do if you're working but looking, just starting to spend some time in the homepage feed, 15 minutes a day, Do this every single business day, liking on a few posts, and then every now and again, maybe 2 to 3 times a week, leaving comments, but make sure those comments are 5 or more words. So when you leave comments, it actually is helping to build up social media karma. Now, let's say, for example, I see my friend Lori Jo Vest. She's a connection. She's a business professional. She's also somebody I crossed paths with in the past. When I leave a comment on her post and I say, love the inspiration here, I had a typo, I got to correct that. Love the inspiration here. Thanks, Lori Jo. When I add that comment, Lori Jo is going to get a notification that will say Brenda commented on her post, and she is going to be more likely the next time I post to return the favor to me. Okay. And by commenting on her post, this doesn't look like I'm looking for a job, right? It just looks like I'm being nice to Lori Jo, right? The cool thing about this is every time you comment on something in the homepage feed, it pops up into the homepage feed. And you might notice, like here's, for example, it says Craig Allen loves this. If Craig were to have commented on it, it would say Craig Allen commented on this. So you're getting your name out in the homepage feed by participating in conversations from other people. Okay. So this is my very first step with you. Get active on LinkedIn. If you're working but looking for a job, get active on LinkedIn. Start spending some time in that homepage feed every single business day. Okay. That's the very first thing. All right, now the next thing, we're going to start talking about your profile. Okay, we're going to start moving into your profile. So I'm going to click on my name to go into my photo here on LinkedIn, and I'm going to start giving you some additional tips here. If you guys have questions, answer those in chat, and I'll go to your questions in a little bit here. But the next thing I'm going to do is I want to look at my profile, and here's my advice for you. If you're working but looking, you want to build your profile so that you look like you're the absolute best brand ambassador for your company. Now, you might be miserable. You might hate your job. You might not want to be there anymore, but I don't care about that. From the outside looking in, you want to be the best looking employee ever. And how do you do that? Make sure you've got a great headshot photo. Okay. If it's current, that's even better. If you have a headshot photo the company took for you and it's on the website, put that on your LinkedIn because you're representing the company on LinkedIn, even though it's your own profile. Make sure you've got a good looking headshot photo. Your header image, which is that rectangular image in the background, guys, if you're working but looking, what you need to do is put in that background something that is representative of your company, of your industry, ideally some type of a branded image. So let's say I work for General Motors. I'm going to probably reach out to the head of the marketing department and say, hey, could I get a branded header I could put on my LinkedIn profile? Because guess what? When I look like I'm really happy at my company, and I'm representing my company, I've got a branded header, everything is kind of built to support the company, it doesn't look like I'm looking for a job, does it? No, it doesn't. And the other great thing is if there's a recruiter who comes across my profile, they go, wow, look at what a great brand ambassador she is for General Motors. I think maybe we should talk about moving her, maybe asking her if she's interested in working for Ford Motor Company, right? So your competitors are going to start noticing those things. People want to hire people who are great ambassadors for their organization. So try to represent your organization well. Get a branded header in the background. And as you're reading through your profile, I want you to think about, do I look like a good brand ambassador for my company, or do I look like I'm looking for a job? Most common mistake I see is in the about statement, people pulling that same paragraph at the top of the resume and they plop it in on their about statement. Well, remember, the goal of a resume is to get a job. The goal of your LinkedIn profile is to tell your professional story to your ideal target audience. If you're working but looking, you don't want people to think that you're looking like you're looking for a job. You want them to kind of stumble across your profile and maybe make that discovery on their own that you look like a great person and reach out to you and tap you on the shoulder and say, would you be interested in talking to our company about this position, right? And when we are using our about statement to describe who we are today, what our company is about, what we're doing in our current role, that is not throwing off any red flags, right? Because we look like we're doing a great job of merchandising our own company, our own organization. So look at your about statement. Does it look like a resume statement? Then you need to change it. If you're working but looking and you don't want people to know, you need to rewrite your about statement. And here's what I would do. If I was a marketing director at ABC Company, I'm an experienced marketing director supporting ABC Company by helping them with brand development, marketing strategy, and connecting our audience to our products, right? I'm explaining to you what I do, but I'm doing so in a way that's helping to support my organization. Now, I'm still using the keywords and phrases that are going to help me to come up in searches, right? But I'm doing so in a way that doesn't kind of throw off those red flags. So I want you to think about that. If you are working but looking, writing your about statement so that you are looking like a great brand ambassador for your company, and you're giving profile viewers information about your company, but you're also weaving in mentions of your job. So think about putting that in here. Here's another thing I want you to think about. If you're working but looking, look at your contact information, okay? Have you filled that out? If I were you, in your website section, I would put your current employer. Yes, definitely put your current employer in there, because again, makes you look like a good brand ambassador. It's not throwing off any red flags. And maybe you have your homepage for your employer. Maybe there's a secondary page, blogs or something. Maybe there's an event page or an email subscription list. But fill in, they give you 3 websites. I use all 3. Use all 3, even if you're working but looking, okay? And then if you scroll down a little bit here, you're going to notice that you see an email address. Now, you can only designate one email as your primary email on your LinkedIn account. If you are working, I would typically recommend that you keep that as your work email. So again, if I was working at ABC Company, it's brenda@abccompany.com. Don't change it right now if it is your work email, because if you do, that may trigger to people that you're starting to think about making a move, okay? Now, if it's already set on your Gmail, don't change it back. Keep it that way. But if you are working, I would typically tell you to keep your work email on there. And you might say, well, Brenda, what if a hiring manager tries to email me and I know my employer's checking my email and they're going to see that I'm getting those messages? Here's what I do. And this happened in a previous role where I got an email sent to my work email from a recruiter, and I didn't respond through my work email, but I went back through LinkedIn. I found the recruiter and I messaged them and I said, hey, how about we take this conversation offline, or let's communicate through my Gmail instead, right? And if my employer had, which they didn't, but if they had said, hey, Brenda, we saw that you got an email from XYZ company. Are you thinking about looking? Are you, 1 foot out the door? I would have said, oh, well, I have it set up on my LinkedIn account. I didn't even notice that email coming through. And then I'd probably start hightailing it out of that company, because who wants to work for a company that they're spying on your email anyways, right? But if that is a concern, then just don't use your email to communicate back with them. Go back through LinkedIn or get their email from that signature and go back into your home email and communicate that way, okay? But think about this. Think about your contact info and the messages that you might be sending. If you have your work email and you change it to your home email, that could be a red flag. You're starting to think about looking for another opportunity. Having said that, if you notice, you can go into your LinkedIn settings and privacy area, and there is a place within the sign-in and security section for email addresses. I would always recommend that you have at least 2 emails in here. Your primary should be your work email if you're working. Your secondary should be a home email, like a Gmail or a Hotmail. You always want to have at least 2, because you never know where the future may lead. The last thing you want to do is one day discover you're no longer working for your employer, you no longer have access to that email box, and you only have 1 email listed on your LinkedIn account. And guess what? You've also forgotten your LinkedIn password because it's been so long since you changed it. There was one client I work with, and it took us 4 hours to get in contact with someone from LinkedIn. They couldn't change it. She had to call somebody at her IT department at her old company and say, can you look for the email that's coming in and tell me what the code is? You don't want to be in that situation. So always have 2 emails. The one that is designated as primary is the one that will show to people when they go into your contact info. Any of these emails can be used to access your account. So if you find yourself suddenly back into that job search market, no longer working for XYZ company, you can go in and remove that primary email from your work and change it to one of your secondary messages that are in there, secondary email addresses. All right, so we've talked about a lot of tips in here, and I want to allow a time for a few questions. I want to do one more tip for you on your LinkedIn profile, and this is if you are working but looking. This is like a common thing I see. I can tell within seconds when was the last time you made a job change on LinkedIn. And I'm just going to try to find somebody in my homepage feed just to show you as an example here. And I don't want to pick on somebody that I know, so I'm going to try to find somebody who's a second level connection. Let's see here. I'm going to try to find somebody a little bit lower on in the list. So let's look at Richard. I don't know Richard personally. He's a second level connection, but if he happened to have had, let's see if he has any recommendations on his profile. Oh, he does. Okay. So typically this is what happens. You're looking for a job and you're going to request a couple recommendations from people on LinkedIn, and maybe you give one too, but that's the only time you think about requesting or giving recommendations is when you made your last job change. So if I look at Richard's recommendations, he's leaving me breadcrumbs. And I see that he received a recommendation in July of 2012, May of 2012, November of 2011, and that was the last time. And he gave recommendations roughly the same time frame, right? 10 and 11, 2010 and 2011. Now I'm going to go up to his experience section just to see. I've never looked at this person's profile. I'm just kind of guessing on this. But look what happened here, guys. He made a job change in 2012. He left Kilco and went to a new company, Arab. So this is my tip for you. If you're thinking about making a job change, please do not do a flurry of recommendations on LinkedIn. If anything, if you're going to give, if you're going to focus on recommendations, what I would do is give recommendations. Give one or two and put a calendar reminder once per quarter, or if you want to get a little bit more aggressive, once per month, and just start to spread those out over time. A surefire sign that you're looking for a job is a flurry of new recommendations received within a 2 to 3 month time period, okay? You're leaving breadcrumbs. Maybe you don't want those breadcrumbs to be out there, right? So if you were, instead of just putting 2 or 3 in that shorter period, what if you gave 2 recommendations every month in 2021? Then when the new recommendations came in, they're going to blend in with those as well, right? Because you're going to be giving them continuously. And people might go, oh, well, she's just getting more recommendations because she's more active on LinkedIn. It's not really firing off those red flags. Does that make sense? Hopefully me showing you this on screen, and again, didn't know that guy, I just pulled up his profile, but it's a very common thing I see as a marketer, as somebody who's kind of focused on LinkedIn. It's very easy to see when you're looking at making a change. I want to be a resource for you. If you're working but looking and you don't want to risk your current situation, you don't want your coworkers to know, you might feel like you're in a situation at your job where your job is at risk, and you don't want them to say, well, Brenda's looking anyway, so let's just get rid of her, right? Let's make that an action. When we want to change jobs, let's give us a better chance for staying at that job until we're ready to leave. Let's not give them any cues from our LinkedIn profile. All right, guys, I'm going to open this up to Q&A. It's 1:51, and if you remember me earlier, I said StreamYard's going to automatically cut me off at 2 o'clock. So we've got about 9 minutes to go for some questions. I want to see if you guys have any questions. Pull those up on screen. Let me know if you have any questions. And I see one person, LinkedIn user, and you can see this is this gray avatar. You know, when you do activity on LinkedIn, it is visible. And this person is saying, is there a way to hide your activity? There's really not a way to hide it, all of your activity. You can do so on a person-to-person basis. So several jobs ago, when I was looking to make a career change, I didn't want my boss and the president of the company to know, so I disconnected from both of them on LinkedIn. Now, when you disconnect from a person, it just means they're not going to see your activity in their homepage feed, unless a lot of other people in your network are seeing it. Then they're going to see it as a second level connection. But if you wanted to take it a step further, you could block a person. Now, if I block you on LinkedIn, you can no longer see my activity, and I can no longer see your activity. You can no longer see my profile. You're not going to find anything. And if you look up somebody that you've blocked, it will say this user's profile is not available. So that takes care of it on a person level. But what's to say, you know, I might block Jim, and Jim talks to his wife, Sheila, and says, Sheila, can you look up Brenda? I can't find her. And then over Sheila's shoulder, Jim sees all of Brenda's activity. So it's not foolproof, unfortunately. You cannot be active on LinkedIn. That's another way to hide your activity. But no, unfortunately, you have to think about any activities you do on LinkedIn are viewable and they're visible. Whether it's commenting on a LinkedIn Live, hint, hint, hint. If you don't want people to know you're working but looking, don't comment right now during my segment, okay? If you did comment and you don't want people to know, go back and you can actually delete your comment out of the live stream, okay? So that's one way. And I would say don't be inactive because you don't want people to know. I would say be strategic about your activities. Look like you're a good brand ambassador. Interact with your company page posts. Click out your company page posts every now and again. Talk about your company in your posts. Then people aren't going to go, wow, she's looking at jumping ship. They're going to go, wow, she's a great brand ambassador. We should hire her, right? Or we want to keep her longer because it looks like she loves her job, right? So don't worry about hiding the activity is my advice for you there. Lisa has a question. when do we put end date of the job that you referred load from? Immediate, 2 months, 4 months. Now, Lisa, this is actually a great question, because when you put an end date on your LinkedIn profile, you're actually, this is not me, this is my interpretation of LinkedIn is penalizing you. You're not going to come up in as many search results on LinkedIn. So there's a couple ways that you can kind of work around this issue. One is, don't put an end date until you find a new job. If you happen to have an interviewing situation and they say your LinkedIn hasn't been updated, you know, it shows that you're still working there, you could say one of two things. Oh, I just haven't gotten around to updating it yet. Related to that, you could kind of say, or I plan on updating it once I get a new job. The other thing you could say is, yeah, I actually did not put an end date because I heard from someone, not just me, Brenda Muller, but other people as well, that you get penalized and coming up in search results if you don't have a current employer. So I didn't want to reduce, you know, the searches that I was appearing in. So I didn't put an end date in there. Another thing you could do, and I'm going to pull up my webpage in the background just to show you guys this. I created a blog because I actually asked this very question on LinkedIn a while back, and I said, recruiter friends, what should people put in their experience section if they are not working, but they want to put an end date because they don't want to have their previous employer showing anymore? You know, maybe it's just salt in a wound. Every time you look at it, you're like, I want to put an end date. I just want to close that chapter of my life off. Whoops, wrong link here. And I created a blog and I posted this. It was on a Friday night. And I had a handful of people responding back in terms of what should they put. And it's right here, in career transition employer options. So what you could do, Lisa, is you could look at this blog and you'll see there's a bunch of pages that people have created on LinkedIn where they're called things like currently seeking opportunities. So let me just show you one of these as an example. You could put that you're a marketing director as the job title at company name called currently seeking new opportunities. That way you have a current position on your profile, but it's still evident to us that you're looking for a job. Okay. Now, obviously that is only for people that are actively unemployed in career transition, not for people that are working but looking, because you don't want to do that. All right. Hopefully that helps. Miriam, we've got 4 minutes to go, guys. Miriam asks, is there a recording of these presentations? Yes. And thank you so much for asking that question. I want to remind you guys right now, this entire segment is live streaming right now on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And you can go back afterwards and you can find the live stream and you can watch it from start to finish as one big 4-hour video. But hey, I got a little bonus for you. Go to my website, look at this right here, mellermarketing.com/Feb2021. I'm going to pull up the webpage on screen. And if you go to this webpage, you can join the Meller Marketing Job Seeker VIP email list for today's event. And tomorrow I will send you an email, and that email will include every segment that we had today. So the 10 to 10:30 using personal branding, that will be a video clip. The 10:30 to 11 segment, the 11 to 11:30. So I'm going to have each of these as separate clips. And also I asked for each of our speakers to include offers for job seekers. So whether that's free resources, checklists, ebooks, anything like that, or discounted offers, that will be included in the email. But you do have to sign up to get that. And if you go to, again, mellermarketing.com/Feb2021, join the form, and then I think you get an automated email. You have to confirm. It's like the double opt-in, whatever that thing's called. But you do need to subscribe, and then you will get access to the playbacks. Yeah, you can certainly go out onto LinkedIn. You can go onto YouTube, Facebook, and you can find it. But if you want each of them individually, you have to subscribe. And if you want to get those offers, you have to subscribe as well. And I did ask our presenters to share their slide decks too. Okay, so make sure that you do that. And thank you guys so much for watching here today. This was just an amazing event. Let's see if I can find maybe one final question. There were a lot of pie mentions today. Did you guys catch that? I did not ask our presenters to do that. Jerry Jones noticed that. Jerry Jones is a fan of pie. I want to bring up my book here. If you guys haven't heard, I'm an author. I'm very excited about this. It's called Social Media Pie, How to Enjoy a Bigger Slice of LinkedIn. If you buy the book from my website, you get, I go out of camera sometimes. Did you guys know that? You get a custom pink envelope, and I will autograph your book for you. So I'll put that in chat here in a second if you're interested in supporting that. Kelly, you are very welcome. We got 2 minutes to go. I'm going to go all the way through until this video stops here. You are very welcome, Kelly. I'm planning on doing another LinkedIn Live-a-thon event next month. and I'll include the details in the email. But what we're looking at is still the same kind of Saturday format, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. My next event, I will be calling it a LinkedIn Live-a-thon for job seekers, featuring the Meller Marketing LinkedIn Rockstars. So my attendee, my guest list will include people who appear on any of those lists, both LinkedIn trainers and non-trainers alike, but I'm going to ask them to come and to present topics in different areas. So I don't have the date in front of me right now, but it will be, I believe, the third Saturday in March when that event will be held. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I love your energy. I love your comments. And I'm going to finish us off with a quick outro video here and just remind you guys to make sure to subscribe. You can get the playback. After you're done watching the video today, click on share and please share it with your network. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And I look forward to seeing you guys all on LinkedIn. Take care, everybody. And thank you so much for watching here today. Have a wonderful weekend.